My entitled roommate lies to all of us and gets away with not paying rent for literally 2 years. But after me and the rest of my roommates found out about this, we decided to get some revenge by ruining this guy's chance at ever getting his deposit back by throwing the most destructive and messy party we've ever had in our life. And I honestly don't feel bad about it in the slightest because this guy absolutely deserved it. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I was renting a 6-bedroom house with 8 other people 2 years ago. We were all in our 20s, earning good money and partying very hard. The landlord didn't want to deal with us individually, so it was decided that one person had to be responsible for paying rent for all of us. Now, the person who paid the rent, who we will call Dave, also paid the initial deposit. Dave had rich parents, so he always had spare money to help out, and everyone agreed that he was a great bloke. Now, Dave promised to pay the rent for the last month for all of us if we cleaned the place up when the contract ended. Now, the house wasn't trash, but needed a deep cleaning and decorating and a few repairs to get the deposit back. And since we knew it was about $3,600 for 6 months of rent that was deposited, we just completely agreed with him. Unfortunately for Dave, he was away when the landlord came to do the initial inspection to let us know what needed to happen for the deposit to be returned. And in conversation, it turned out that the rent was being split 8 ways and not 9. Apparently, Dave had been living there rent-free for 2 years without any of us knowing. So we had a massive party over a long weekend, drinks were spilled, and a few fights broke out on more than one occasion. We didn't put anything out for the dustman for 2 weeks, cleaned absolutely nothing, and moved out the day before Dave got back, literally 1 day before handover. Surprisingly though, he managed to get $400 of the deposit back and tried to make all of us pay the outstanding money that we owed him. He eventually gave up after threats of police involvement if he tried to pursue it. Well, fast forward and I found out a few years later that our actions totally wrecked his plan to put a deposit down on the house he was saving up for, which is even better because that money was literally ours and not for him to use how he pleases. Dude, how did Dave do that? Seriously. This guy has rich parents and he tries to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I'll take care of the rent, guys, don't worry about it. And he literally just sneaks past everybody for 2 years not paying any rent. Like, don't get me wrong, yeah, this guy's absolutely the jerk, but also that's really funny. I bet every single month this guy's trying to sweat silently and be like, okay, maybe they won't notice. Maybe this time they won't notice and just let me just keep getting away with this. And sure, you did get back at him, but I think in a way Dave did kind of win because although he didn't get the house that he wanted, he did get away with like not paying rent for a long time. And even though that makes him a trash human being, I still think it's incredibly hilarious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled scammer charges me over $1,000 for a deep cleaning bill that honestly makes no sense, as we left the venue that we rented out completely spotless. But after doing some digging, I realized that they were trying to scam us out of our money, which then caused me to get some revenge by ruining her business from the ground up. Here's what I did. Okay, so I rented a small event space for a surprise party. The place looked nice online, it was a decent price, and the host seemed polite enough until after the event. But out of nowhere, she hits me with a $1,200 deep cleaning bill, and she said that we left the place unusable, which was wild because we barely used the kitchen and left it cleaner than we found it. I asked for proof and she sent blurry photos of trash that wasn't even ours. And while I did appeal through the booking platform, I was denied. And it was clear she was running a side hustle, scam a few hundred off each booking and hope no one fights too hard. So you know what? I did my own cleaning. I found her business on every platform that I could. Stuff like Yelp, Google, Facebook, even an event site. And I left detailed, calm, 1-star reviews with photos from our event showing how spotless the place was when we left. Well, it turns out that I wasn't the only one. My reviews picked up traction and others came forward and had the same scam. And within weeks, her rating dropped from nearly 5 stars all the way to under 3. Well, the last time I checked, she's now offering 50% off of all bookings. So I guess you could say someone's trying to clean up her own reputation. Okay, I am so glad you did this because I've always wanted to do this, but I've never had the courage to do it, so this was really cathartic. Especially a deep cleaning bill for over $1,000. Like, are you kidding me right now? What is going on right now? No cleaning bill should ever be that much. Did you mop the floors with liquid gold instead of like water and soap? Like, what's going on right now? But I think the fact that it really was a scam must have been like so validating, because now it's like vindication that no, it's not just you, and yes, they've done this to other people. So good for you for going where it counts and hitting them online, because that's a reputation that absolutely will take a long time for them to clean up. Am I the jerk for not letting my neighbor's kid ruin my lawn in the name of imagination, as he wanted to pretend to be a pirate and bury stuff in my yard? Because once I shut it down, the mom of this kid basically guilt-tripped me into thinking that I ruined his imagination. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood with your standard backyard, some grass, a few few old trees and a weathered shed. It's nothing fancy, but I just try to keep it tidy. I'm on polite but not close terms with most neighbors, and we do wave and sometimes chat about the weather, but that's about it. There's a family 2 doors down with a boy who's maybe 9 or 10 years old, and lately he's gone full pirate mode. I mean fully committed. He's got an eye patch, a cardboard sword, and yelling, "Ye be cursed," to the squirrels. And at first it honestly was pretty wholesome. That is until I started noticing small holes in my yard, just little ones near the fence, and I honestly assumed it was raccoons. But then the holes got bigger. One morning I went out and found the ground beneath my shed completely torn up, with clumps of grass tossed around and a map pinned to the tree with a stick. Eventually I caught him out there mid-dig. I asked him what he was doing, and he straight up told me, "Yarg, I'm hiding my treasure. No one must know. This is the perfect hiding spot." I then told him calmly, "Hey, this is my yard. You can't dig here." He got a little huffy but ran off, and I figured that was the end of it, but no. The next day there was a new hole, and it was bigger. There was even a tin lunchbox half buried behind the shed. So I dig it up, and it's full of Pokemon cards, fake jewels, toy coins, and a few crumpled $5 bills. I bring it to his mom and I explain what's going on. But guess what? She immediately gets defensive. No apology, but just a heavy sigh and says, "Well, he's just using his imagination. I think it's sweet." I told her I don't mind the creativity, but just not in my yard. She rolled her eyes and said, "Can't you just let him have this? It's not like your grass is that nice anyways." I said as politely as possible that I didn't want holes being dug on my property by someone else's kid. I then handed over the lunchbox and then I just left. Well, that night she sends me a long text message telling me I humiliated her son, crushed his dreams, and created an environment where children can't be safe being children. She said he cried for over an hour and now thinks I'm the villain of his story, which is literally what she said to me. Well, you know what? I didn't reply. And listen, I get it. He's a kid. I didn't yell, I didn't shame him, and I even gave the stuff back. But I'm not thrilled about my yard being turned into a sandbox and getting insulted for not being okay with it. So am I the jerk for drawing a line and not entertaining a pirate storyline that involved my yard getting completely wrecked? Because right now I'm still pretty pissed off. No, you're not the jerk. This mom is so weird. She's trying to be like, "Wow, you created a really hostile environment. My kid can't be a kid anymore. And the only way he can be a kid is by digging up your yard because that's ugly. Thanks." It's like, dude, if you really want your kid to be digging holes and like putting treasure in there or whatever's going on, then use your own yard, lady. Why do you gotta use mine? Like, your stupid kid can still be creative and all this stuff, but don't like dig up my yard. Like, seriously? And I guarantee you this is just the parent being like, "I don't want to deal with this, but also I'm not gonna tell my kid no." And instead of correcting their kid and being like, "Hey, stay off of other people's yard," she tries to be like, "Oh, this is your fault." I would honestly hate living next to someone like that, because you can bet this is like not the last thing they're gonna complain about. Am I the jerk for losing my temper with my friend after they added bone broth to a soup that my girlfriend ate, as he was convinced that she was not a real vegetarian? But after my girlfriend was violently ill in the bathroom, my entire friend group is completely in shambles after I laid into this guy. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, so my girlfriend and I are ovo-lacto-vegetarian, and we have been for approximately 6 months or so because she developed a sudden involuntary negative reaction to meat and some animal products. At best, she'll spit out the offending bite and rinse her mouth out, and at worst, she'll get sick almost immediately. She's gone to her primary care and is seeing a therapist, but we have yet to know why she reacts this way. Any meat, from mammal to poultry to fish, triggers this reaction in her if she consumes it. Even sufficiently meaty vegan products that imitate the taste and texture of meat can also set her off too. I opted to cut meat out of my diet as well, considering I do most of the cooking, and it's easier to make us both the same meals rather than worry about cross-contamination. I've grown to prefer some of the meatless alternatives of our normal fare, and seeing her unabashedly enjoy my food makes me feel warm and content. Now, one of the worst ingredients that triggers a reaction in her is bone broth. I used to drink and cook with it beforehand, but nowadays I use mushroom broth, and I don't notice much of a difference except when I'm shopping, as it tends to be in stock at my local grocery store even when the meat alternatives are not. Sometimes I even switch out instant ramen seasoning for a mushroom bouillon base with dried veggies if I'm feeling lazy and I want something quick. So anyways, we have a shared friend who we will call Brian, who invites us and a few others, including another friend who we will call Charlie, over to their place for the occasional dinner and a hangout. He's a much better cook than I am, and he invited us over for group chat recently, even offering to send us a few of his recipes that he's considering making, just to run it by us and make sure that he could accommodate. Well, my girlfriend and I looked over the recipes that Brian sent us, and a minestrone recipe caught our eye, especially because it's been soup weather and I hadn't had proper minestrone in ages. We told him what we thought, and he admitted it's what he would have chosen too. He sent a time and date to the group chat and all seemed well. The day rolls around and we arrived a little later than everyone else. We get settled in and we serve ourselves some soup before sitting at the table. My girlfriend only had a single spoonful before immediately immediately making a beeline for the bathroom. As soon as the bathroom door slammed shut, Charlie shrunk in his seat and admitted to adding bone broth to the minestrone, all while Brian was greeting us as he felt it needed the flavor, and he didn't think that my girlfriend was really vegetarian. Well, this is where I might be the jerk in this story, because I laid into Charlie, calling him, among other things, a complete idiot for tampering with food that someone else made, and a piece of garbage for doing it knowing full and well it was supposed to be vegetarian, not to mention for also making my girlfriend sick. I told him I never wanted to see his face again, and then I left for home with my girlfriend as soon as she got out of the bathroom and rinsed out her mouth. Now, as a result, the group chat is in shambles. My girlfriend says that she appreciates me standing up for her, but she feels bad for causing a scene. So seriously, am I at fault for causing a scene or like doing something wrong? Because right now I'm still incredibly upset by this situation. Dude, the way Charlie acted is insane. So let me get this straight. Someone who's in this friend group who knows that the girlfriend has violent reactions to meat-based products decides, oh, don't worry about it, I'll just add some bone broth in there and it'll be fine. Anyway, she's just a fake vegetarian as it is, no big deal. It's like, dude, what are you doing? This is so much more than someone just not wanting to eat meat. This is literally a physical response. We're talking like throwing up and like completely being done for the day if they eat anything meat-based. So like, why would Charlie step up and do that? Like, why on earth would you be like, oh, you're a fake vegetarian and I'm gonna prove it? Like, did he think he was gonna try and prove something? Because this is crazy if that's the fact. And I can imagine the original poster and like how stressed out they are with like all the food they try to eat and all the food they're trying to avoid as well. So to have someone literally just completely betray your trust like that, like that's weird. Especially the part about putting that bone broth in something someone else made. Like if you wanted the flavor right, why not put it in your own bowl? Like why would you do that to the whole thing and not say anything? Like that's crazy, and in my opinion, there's just no good excuse for that. My toxic coworker basically said she's gonna punch me in the face one day, all because I was just trying to do my job. So I decided to quit on the spot, but now after thinking about it, I'm having second thoughts, and I'm wondering if I overreacted in this situation. Here's how it went down. Okay, to start things out, I want to apologize if this is long, but I would like to give as much context as possible. I started working as a dietary aid cook at an adult healthcare facility at the end of January. On the third day of training, an aide who got hired the same day as me but started training sooner was introduced to me. She seemed a little standoffish, but that's okay, we were both new, so I totally understood. My trainer and I finished our meal and had a little time before serving. The aide had already swept the kitchen, so I offered to mop, trying to be helpful. I hadn't realized that she was on the phone, so when I didn't get a clear yes or no, I just went ahead and I grabbed the mop. Now, I didn't get far before she came up to me and said, not to sound like a jerk or anything, but when I say I want to do something, I want to do it, because I have a certain way that I want it done. So I put the mop in the bucket and I said, okay, no problem. Here you go. I went outside to smoke a cigarette with my trainer and let her know I messed up by trying to help. Both of us were a little confused by it, but just kind of shrugged it off. A little later, she was taking apart the coffee pots, so I went to see how they do it. She gave me a sort of WTF look and ignored me, so I just walked away. She was still on her phone call, by the way, which is against company policy to be on your phone. At this point, I could tell we were probably not going to get along, which is totally fine. Not everyone's your cup of tea. Now, usually the aide goes out about an hour before serving to set up napkins, silverware, and cups for the residents, and about 5 minutes before serving goes out to fill the cups with the residents' drinks. For some reason, she decided to set up and pour drinks at the same time. This is a big no-no because we, the cooks, cannot serve anyone who doesn't have drinks, so we were having to wait on her. We have to push our meal cart to 3 different pods. The first is pod A, the second is pod C, and the third is pod B. We were on the first pod when a CNA from C pod came over asking about the tables being set up. I let her know the aide was a little behind, but would be there shortly. The aide then decides to yell out, "I'm coming and you can get rid of that attitude real quick." The CNA just turned around and went back to her pod as I went back to the steam table to finish passing plates. After dinner, the cooks break down the steam table, clean it and the pans, then have to wait for the aide to go pick up the dishes and bring them back. And this is supposed to happen in stages. The first being pod A. They bring dishes to the kitchen where the cook will wash them and put them away, while the aide goes to C pod for their dishes and so on. Well, she went and collected all 3 pods. I was prepared to wash the dishes, so I had the dishwasher trays set up in the order that I preferred. But I guess this pissed her off, I don't know. She then said that this got in the way of her trying to do her job. But I just ignored her and I started putting the dishes that she washed away. There were plates that still had food and oil stains on them from dinner, so I put them back to be rewashed. She then snapped at me and said, "What in the F is your problem? You've had an attitude all night, trying to tell me how to do my job." But I told her I don't have a problem. The plates are simply still dirty. She tried to say they weren't dirty, but they were just stained. But no, girl, there's still food on them. They're dirty. She then calls me the B word and then threatens to leave, which I tell her, okay, go ahead ahead and leave. No one is forcing you to stay here. As soon as the interaction ended, I messaged the assistant manager and I let her know exactly what happened. The next day, my manager talked to me and said the aide had apologized and said that she would to me as well, but she never did. And her behavior stayed the same. She was and is on her phone, even in video calls while walking around the pods, which I'm pretty sure is illegal as residents were able to see her calls. She was having inappropriate conversations for work, yelling and not being able to get her work done because she was distracted. She would come in not wearing approved outfits, wouldn't wear a hairnet, always on the phone, wouldn't finish her duties, and then would leave not saying a word, and I would have to do everything by myself. So you know what? I just reported the incident. But it finally came to head last week when I was cooking with sugar and corn syrup at the stove, and she pushed a trash can into me. I am so glad I saw it coming and was able to push it out of the way, because I can only imagine what would have happened had that boiling pot fallen and spilled all over me. Well, neither manager took it seriously. So I thought to myself, okay, fine. The next night she put boiling water into a bin and then put the plates in the bin. Again, I'm glad I saw her using boiling water because I could have been severely burned. And yet again, the managers just didn't care. So on Sunday, we were working together and I had just served C-Pod and left for B-Pod when a CNA came to ask about dessert. I said it was ice cream and I asked if there was some in the kitchenette freezer. He said no, so I took him to the walk-in freezer and grabbed him some ice cream. As I started to serve, the aide then came up to me and asked, "Did you give so-and-so ice cream?" And I said, "Yes, I did." He said there wasn't any. The aide then said, "Well, you shouldn't have done that. Those ice creams are for specific people." But here's the thing. No, they're actually not. I then said I gave him the right ice cream. The aide then said to me, "Well, I had it on my cart." So I responded by saying, "Okay, well, they didn't have it. And if you had done your job, I would not have had to." She started talking, so I interrupted her and I tell her to just go back to the kitchen and do your job because I'm not doing this. As she walked away, she said, "You're gonna get punched in the face someday." And one of the CNAs there said, "You're a better woman than me." And for some reason, the aide thought that she was talking to her, so she yelled out, "And she knows exactly why." Now, when I heard this, I just breathed through it. I finished serving, I got my steam table to the kitchen, and immediately went to call the boss. Well, I got no answer twice. So my next bet was the assistant manager, and she answered immediately. I told her the situation and said that I'm leaving. I won't stay in an environment where I felt unsafe. And to that, she said that she was on the way. I went to the kitchen, cleaned the steam table and my area, clocked out, and I finally left. I met the manager as I was pulling out, and I gave her the list of people who witnessed what happened, and then I just went home. I then found out the aide decided to leave too, once she realized I was gone, leaving the manager to do everything. I also reached out to Human Resources to let her know what happened. She apologized to me and then asked for a meeting the next day. So I go into work, and of course, the same aide is there. And it was then that I let my assistant manager know that if she wasn't fired, then I was quitting. The aide did minor things to inconvenience me throughout the day. When it was time to wash dishes, she just dumped them on the dishwasher tray, all scattered and crazy. I just snapped a picture and sent it to my fiance, and I laughed about how effing childish she was. I went to the meeting with my manager in HR, and it took less than 3 minutes. I explained what happened, and she said to me, "When I spoke to the aide about this, I told her that no matter how she is feeling, she can't act that way or say these things." I then interrupted her and I said, "This conversation needs to go no further. I quit. Good luck with the mess." And after that, I walked out. I walked through the kitchen, I clocked out, and I left. My assistant manager messaged me immediately and said, "What happened? You were in there for like 30 seconds. But I told her, "Look, I told you I was quitting if nothing happened." So seriously, did I overreact for quitting on the spot? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Dude, your coworker's so toxic. There's no way I would ever want to work with them. First of all, it's pretty obvious they definitely said, "Yeah, we're gonna punch you in the face." Like, you don't just say like, "Oh man, one day you're gonna get punched in the face," without some kind of plan of actually punching that person in the face. I think that's kind of a given. But also, this coworker had an attitude from day one. Like, you weren't bothering her at all. You were just doing your job. And I love the one time she came in there and she's like, "Oh, I can do it. And by the way, get rid of that attitude." And it's like, dude, nobody has an attitude except for you. I don't know what's going on right now, but you might want to figure that out at home. Because that's some like classic projection where she's like, "I don't have an attitude, you do." And it's like, dude, clearly you're pissed off at something and I can't help that. And it's also not my fault. So hey, best of luck with that in therapy or whatever's going on, but that doesn't involve me at all. So for me, my reaction is kind of twofold. For one, good for you for getting away from these people because Human Resources and your managers are completely useless. But also, walking out after a coworker literally said they're gonna punch you in the face, even if they said it in a vague way, which is still absolutely them saying they're gonna punch you, like that is absolutely necessary for your own safety. Like, I'm sorry, there's just no good excuse for letting that slide because Human Resources and your managers completely failed you. And if they were better at their jobs, they would have ensured that this lady would have been kicked out of there immediately. Like, in my opinion, you just can't let threats like that slide even for a second because this could end in disaster. disaster. Like seriously, what were they thinking letting that slide? Especially with you having witnesses, like this should have been a done deal, man. So no, I don't think you overreacted. I think you did the right thing. And the fact that your managers and human resources let you down entirely, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. My crazy landlord made my life a living nightmare for over 3 years, constantly retaliating against me anytime I cause any kind of problems in his life, as well as refusing to fix several things in my house that were crucial to keep things up to code. So I decided to finally get some revenge, not only by reporting him to the building inspector, but also by getting the police involved. And now, as a result, my landlord is being charged by the police with a felony for breaking and entering. And I've honestly never felt better in my life for getting back at someone who honestly deserved it. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that my landlord was a terrible human being. Honestly, calling him a human being is even pushing it. Here's just a few things he's done to me over the past 3 years. He stole my dryer and other household products that are in a common area. He made me pay for a plumbing repair which was deemed normal wear and tear. He tried breaking into my house, and he retaliated against me because I went to my lawyer after he sent me a letter about a parking spot. He even tried to charge me an extra $150 a month. Now, mind you, I was never late for rent in 3 years, except for when he made me pay for the plumbing repair. So the next month, I was a couple of days late. But honestly, the list goes on. Now, this apartment was nowhere near being nice. I found out the plumbing was illegal. He left me with a porch for years that has severe safety issues. The ceiling paint was always falling down. The gas heater was also not up to code. And again, the list goes on. Finally, I got my chance to leave after he wanted to raise my rent by $500 a month. I mean, he will do anything and everything to get more money out of his tenants. So I called the building inspector 4 days before I left, and I told him everything. The porch, when he finally replaced it, didn't have a permit and was definitely not up to code. I told him about the plumbing and the heater, and I just went on and on. Well, the inspector came over the very next day, and I saw him taking several measurements, and each violation is $500 a day until it's all fixed. Now, I honestly don't know what happened, but my God, did it feel good to finally get back at him. And now, at the very least, he's on the town's radar. A week before I moved out, he tried telling me I needed to be out at a specific time, but I never responded, and I didn't tell him where I lived because that's just not how it works. He tried to say that the police would be called if I wasn't gone. So I went to the police myself that morning to warn them, and the landlord did come by, and he did try to bother me and really cause problems, but I just called the police, and they informed him that I was in the right. Long story short, he had broken into my apartment while I was gone, and when he got in, he nailed my door shut. Well, I told the police to get a supervisor because I was so over being treated like this by this guy. And go figure, he left before the supervisor could get there, because I'm positive he knew he would be arrested on site. I got the police report, and they're charging him with a felony for breaking and entering. So the moral of this story is that you shouldn't be a jerk to good people, especially when they haven't done anything wrong. Wow, your landlord sounds like a piece of garbage. This guy not only retaliated against you, but he also broke into your house and nailed the door shut. Not to mention constantly bothering you and being like, oh, you're gonna be out on this specific time or else. And with the myriad of things you've dealt with over the past 3 years, I honestly don't blame you for getting out and getting away from this guy. It really seems like he was trying to strong arm you left and right and was clearly used to treating you like garbage on a daily basis. I mean, the plumbing situation alone would have made me lose my mind. So seriously, with all things considered, it is honestly beautiful karma that you got this guy in trouble. And not only with the building inspector, because I'm sure that probably cost him a lot of money, but also with the police. Like, this guy can't just break into the apartment and do whatever he wants. You have rights as a tenant, and that is not okay. So the fact that he nailed the door shut is literally just a nail in his coffin, because now this idiot has to deal with felony charges for breaking and entering. And honestly, this guy got exactly what he deserved, because if he had just treated you right, then all of this could have been avoided. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled old jerk makes my girlfriend uncomfortable as he steals my seat next to my girlfriend at the pool. So I decided to put him in his place by telling him to get lost, causing him to have a full-blown meltdown as he was furious that someone would tell him what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I got a pool pass to a resort for me and my girlfriend. She's a single mom, and I try to treat her anytime that I can. We go to this resort and we find some chairs. She has pale skin, so she likes to sit under an umbrella, while I like to sit under the sun. We find places with 3 seats, and I put our stuff in between us us in the middle seat, and then we just go about our day. Now, I would like to say this place was empty. There were maybe 10 people there for this huge resort pool. So basically, there were tons of empty chairs. So I go to grab some drinks, and the minute I leave, some 80-year-old jerk takes my seat, and then in the process tries to start talking to my girlfriend. When I finally come up and I see what's going on, he literally says that I should leave. Like, this guy walked around the pool and sat right next to her. Now, I know my girlfriend is good looking, but seriously, what is happening? Now, I can tell by my girlfriend's face that she's really annoyed by him sitting there. He's leaning in trying to talk to her, and when I make my way back, I get in front of him and I say, "You're in my seat." I don't say please or sir, none of that. I just stare this old jerk down and I get really close to him. Well, he very quickly got the point and he decided to leave. But shortly after, he came back and he said to me, "What makes you think you can tell me where to sit?" And at this point, I just went off on him. I said to him, "I told you to leave because you're being really creepy, and I don't want you around me or my girlfriend." He said to me, "You can't talk to me like that." But I just respond back by saying, "You sure? You wanted this confrontation, so you're getting it." Now, if I was you, I would go take a walk before something bad happens to you. The guy eventually gets in the pool and says, "I'd rather swim." Now, this wasn't really loud, but the people around me definitely heard this, as this old man looked around with no idea what to say. I mean, he looked stunned, where he even looked around for some kind of support from anybody else around him, but not a single person came to his defense. And I'm honestly so sick of creepy guys like this. He even tried to sit next to another young woman too, even with his wife watching from the distance. And I honestly haven't been that mad in a very long time. Yeah, that's really weird in my opinion. Here you have this old guy literally going around the pool sitting with all these young women. Meanwhile, his wife is like literally right over there. And by over there, I mean probably like less than 50 feet away. That's really weird because you just don't know his intentions, and you don't know if he's gonna try some weird stuff with your girlfriend. So I don't blame you for telling this guy to get lost, because the way he was acting was very creepy. Am I the jerk for not going to a family dinner at my sister's new restaurant, all because it would have supported my sister, who has hated my guts ever since we were kids? Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I'm the youngest in my family of 7. I have 2 brothers and 4 sisters, and the restaurant in question is owned by my sister, who we will call Daisy. Daisy and I are both close to other members of our family, but she and I were never close, and she has been pretty awful to me over the years. She would try to get other siblings to exclude me, and when they wouldn't, she would say mean things to me. We shared a room until we were 18, and she made the experience miserable for me. She would beg to get her own room or say she wanted to share with another sister, but being as close in age as we were, our parents decided we needed to keep sharing. She would even ruin some of my things when she was trying to get our parents to separate us. She even ignores me as an adult. I was the only person excluded from her 21st birthday party, as well as from her college graduation, and so on. We see each other when we're at our parents', or if we have something going on in the family. Our younger brother has asked her in the past why she hates me so much, especially when she doesn't hate anyone else. Well, she told him that I ruined her life. And of course, she didn't give any more information besides that, but just simply claimed that I ruined her life. She said she wished I was never born and that she would be happier if that was the case. She also said she despised every second of sharing a room with me and wished that I could have just gone missing just to get me out of her hair. Now, when I heard this, I said to myself, okay, fine. You know what? I have 5 other amazing siblings. 5 siblings is more than plenty. At this point, Daisy and I are not sisters. We're just 2 people who happen to share the same family. Now, fast forward, and of course, I knew nothing about Daisy opening a restaurant until it was almost time. And as you can probably guess, she told everyone else except for me. It was mentioned in passing in front of me, which is the only way I found out about it. But my parents wanted the family to support her and decided that we should all have a family dinner just so we could do that. Well, when this got announced, I refused to go. I said I was not supporting her. My parents told me that I needed to go, and most of my siblings weren't really surprised. I mean, one of them was kind of, but they still agreed with me in the end. They told our parents it made 0 sense for me to be there, and Daisy would hate seeing me in her place anyways. In response, our parents just said, oh, families support each other, and all this other garbage. Well, I ended up not going, and 2 of my siblings left during dinner because apparently some things were said about me not showing up. My parents said that I should have put our differences aside and shown Daisy what family does for each other. They told me that she could have come around to me if I just showed up. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. If I was in your shoes, I would have stayed away as well. Daisy sounds incredibly toxic, and toxic for like no reason. It doesn't sound like you did anything. You didn't like offend her or attack her or anything like that, even when you were growing up. It seems like Daisy just didn't like living with you until 18, so she decided, oh, you ruined my life. Not to mention the fact that she tried to turn all your siblings against you and has openly excluded you from like literally everything going on in your life. So it's crazy to me for your parents to be like, oh, come on, just give her some money by eating at a restaurant. That'll make her come around and like you again, right? Like, no, you haven't done anything. And also, what differences are you supposed to put aside? The only difference you have is that Daisy hates you for no reason. You didn't do anything and there's no like conflict. The only conflict is literally just coming from Daisy. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your parents are completely delusional. And the fact that they would still say something about you not being at the dinner, in my opinion, shows how toxic your parents also are. And that is absolutely unfair. An entitled security guard jerk criticizes me for carrying less weight than my wife, stating that it's not fair and that there must be something wrong with me if I'm allowing that to happen. But before I could even get a word in, my wife decided to chime in and effectively put this guy in his place in the best way possible. Here's what happened. So to start things off, my wife is Swedish and incredibly strong-willed and independent. She also works in a physical job, hauling around 70-pound bags of product all day. But in the end, she is very petite with blonde hair and is always treated as fragile by older men, and she absolutely hates it. She refuses to let me help carry groceries most of the time and is very adamant that she doesn't need my help. After many years of this, I've learned to only help when she specifically asks me to, which is something that she does when needed. Also, I ruptured my Achilles tendon last year, and it's a long recovery, so my balance and leg strength is still not back to 100%. So because of that, she is extra careful about letting me carry anything. Well, a few weeks ago, we were hauling some boxes into an event, and we had been carrying them for a while already from the car. My wife asked me to take the heavy box as her arms were getting tired, so we swapped loads. She now had 2 boxes, but together they weighed about 1/3 of the weight of the heavy box. As we were walking into the event space, an older security guard comes walking towards us, and I thought he wanted to check our boxes or sign us in, but instead he walks up to me and points at my wife and he says, "Now that's just not right. You should be carrying more than a little lady here. What's wrong with you?" Now I started to brush him off, but my wife decided to chime in. She said to him, "I don't need anyone carrying anything for me, and neither one of us asked for your opinion." Well, when my wife said that, the guy immediately went flush. He then started muttering about how he was only joking, and he said that as he walked back to his front desk. His performative chivalry was deflected by a modern woman, and I'm sure he'll be remembering that interaction for months to come. Yeah, I can't stand when people do something like this, especially because this guy could have easily just minded his own business. Like, he didn't have to chime in and be like, "Oh wow, you're not carrying enough weight. What's wrong with you? Why would you make her carry more weight than you?" It's like, buddy, what are you talking about? More boxes doesn't mean more weight. And even if that was the case, who are you to say what people can and can't do? The original poster's literally recovering from like an Achilles tendon injury, and just from what I've looked up, that looks like a serious injury. That's like not something to laugh at. So the fact that this guy said anything in the first place is just so rude. But I can say that your wife put him in his place in a fantastic fashion, and hopefully that's enough for this guy to learn his lesson. Am I the jerk for telling my child-free brother that I should inherit our parents' house when they pass away because I have kids and he doesn't? Because right now he is calling me selfish, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife is 43 years old and I'm 49, some 9-year-old twins and an 11-year-old. My parents are in their late 70s and my brother is 52 years old. His financial situation is not very good, partly just because of bad luck, but he also made some questionable decisions. For example, he quit college before finishing his degree just to try and start his own business, which struggled along for a few years, all before going completely under. He is child-free by choice and single not by choice. He had a girlfriend for almost 10 years that he spent a lot of money on, and she ended up leaving once she found out how much debt that he was in. Our parents have helped him out a lot to get him out of debt and also deal with the emotional consequences of all of this. He now owns an apartment and has a stable, decently paying job, but he has barely any savings. My wife and I both worked even while raising our kids, so we are in a good situation money-wise and on track to retire in maybe a little more than 15 years. My brother had a lot of resentment to me for a long time, all because I had the good fortune to basically get everything that he wanted or even wants. I mean, I have the best wife ever, I have a good job, I'm living close to our parents, the list goes on. Now, we have an okay relationship now and we do text each other very often. My family lives very close to my parents' house, only about 20 minutes away, so we have been very close with them over the years. They are wonderful people, and my wife also has a very loving relationship friendship with them. We spent almost all holidays together, and my kids grew up with their grandparents' house as a second home. A lot of their best memories are there, along with my own childhood memories. Well, recently my brother came to visit our parents. He was staying there and we also went to visit. My parents wanted to talk about inheritance with both of us since they are getting older, and they thought that this would be a good opportunity. They said they had some savings, but it was all probably less than half of what the house was worth. My brother immediately said the only fair thing to do was to sell the house and divide the money. I asked him if he cared about whether or not this had been the family home for 3 generations, and he said sure, but it is too big of a house for one person to live in. I said, well, then I should get the house so my family can live there, and that my kids would be sad if the house was sold. Well, my parents agreed, and they said they wanted their grandchildren to be able to live in the house. They said my brother can get everything left over, and I agreed as well. Well, right now my brother is very angry because this is unfair, and he says I manipulated them into agreeing to give me the house. He says he wants the money so he can have a retirement savings, which I really do sympathize with, but I think my parents are being fair, especially because they've already given a lot of money to him. He says they are biased against him because he doesn't have a perfect big happy family. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for the way I want things set up? Because right now I'm seriously not sure what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest, but yes, I think the original poster is absolutely being a jerk right now. Everything in my opinion should be split 50-50, and just because you have a wife and kids doesn't mean you're automatically entitled to that house. Your brother has just as much of a right to half of that house and all of the inheritance just as much as you do. And if you really want to keep that house, then you absolutely should be paying 50% of the house over to him. Like, I totally understand where you're coming from, and like you think the house has some kind of like generational value, and I don't doubt how you feel about that in the slightest. But to straight up claim, oh, I deserve it more than you because I actually have a family, like that's just super rude and that's completely uncalled for. So yeah, I think you would be the jerk to go this route because this is very unfair for your brother. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for telling my best friend that she needs to grow up after she moves in with me and my mom and does literally nothing to help out with the house? Here's what happened. So me and my best friend by the name of Ruby, that's not her real name, are both 19 years old, and we've been best friends for about 8 years now. I told her and her mom that they could stay with me for a while after her dad kicked them out of the house. For reference, this guy is crazy and thought that she was cheating, but she definitely wasn't. Anyways, I asked my mom if they could stay with us just long enough for them to get a place, and my mom is a really nice person and she said okay. Now, this was back in August of 2023. I let Ruby stay in my room because she had a cat that had to stay in there because I have 3 dogs and they are not the best with cats. The only problem is that her cat is wild and literally will not let me sleep. So basically, I just gave Ruby my room. I've been sleeping in my mom's room with her, and Ruby's mom sleeps on the couch. I was also bringing them both to and from work every single day because neither of them have a license. Now, for reference, I work up to 30 to 40 hours a week, and I am in college doing classes online. They don't pay for anything, except for Ruby's mom does get some food stamps, and sometimes she'll help out with food. They don't pay gas or rent, like they literally pay nothing. And my mom won't even let me ask or tell them to start paying. They say they're looking for an apartment, but I just don't know for sure. When it comes to Ruby, she literally just doesn't do anything around the house at all. And the worst part about it is my room is a complete mess. We wash her clothes and fix her food a majority of the time, and her mom will help out with the dishes and cooking on occasion. Ruby's mom and my mom have become really good friends, but Ruby and I just keep drifting apart. I keep trying to influence her to practice for her license. I mean, she bought a car about 3 months ago, and my mom has been helping me bring them to work and back. But Ruby just won't do anything. She keeps hopping from job to job because she said she doesn't want to work. And to be completely honest, she's not very good at working either. So recently, we got into a little bit of an argument because she said I'm never home. And I said to her, well, yeah, I've got a lot of stuff to do and I've got to get stuff done. She then said to me, well, it seems like you don't want to be around me and you keep being so selfish to me and your mom. And I know I was being rude, but I said to her, well, because I don't want to be around you. You are childish to be around. When you grow up some, maybe then we'll get along. Well, after I said that, my mom got mad at me and said it was completely uncalled for. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. I really don't think you're the jerk here. I think Ruby and her mom are completely out of their mind if they're not going to work and also live with you guys. Like, it really doesn't sound like any of them contribute anything to the house, especially Ruby, and like neither of them work or are doing anything to advance their position. Like, Like, how is that fair for you and your mom? You're working 40 hours a week and doing college while also giving them a ride pretty much anywhere they want. And also, how do they not have a license already? I know some people are slower with getting that stuff done, but in this situation where you have a car and you've had one for what, 3 months? Like in that case, you really should take the initiative and get a license. It literally doesn't make any sense to sit there and be like, well, I just don't want to work. But like, ask any working adult. Most people don't want to work either. Everyone on planet Earth would love to win the lottery and then move on with their lives. But clearly, that's not objective reality. Ruby needs to get a job and get a license so she can actually contribute. And you know what? For her comments towards the end of this, where she's like, oh, you're never around anymore. You're being really selfish and it seems like you don't like me. Honestly, if someone took over my room, made a complete mess, and then did nothing to contribute to the house, I would probably stop liking them as well. Now, I'm not saying that what you said wasn't like really mean, but in my opinion, it kind of makes sense why you snapped at her. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, and I really hope for the sake of you and your mom, these two move out and find their own place. My entitled crazy teacher refuses to let me use the bathroom, even though she knew I had a medically diagnosed bladder problem, which forced me to use the bathroom more than other students. But as a result of her cruel actions, she denied me ever having the right to use the bathroom during class, causing me to wet my pants. And as a result, this teacher ended up getting fired. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So I'm a 24-year-old female, and this story happened when I was 10 years old in the 5th grade. So it was basically at the end of my elementary school experience. Overall, my school life was pretty decent, and I haven't really had many bad experiences, except for this one teacher who we will call Mrs. Jerk. And obviously, Mrs. Jerk is not her real name. When I was a little girl, I used to have bathroom accidents fairly often, and my parents were worried about my health. I was taken to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with a weak bladder. This has been and still is a pretty sensitive issue in my life, and I do still have accidents on occasion. Throughout my school life, my parents would always make my condition known to the teachers and principal of the school, requesting that I would be allowed bathroom breaks whenever needed, and this was allowed by the school and wasn't really an issue for the majority of my teachers, who were all very considerate. And it's right about here that Mrs. Jerk enters the story. At first, she seemed to be alright with my frequent bathroom breaks, and it wasn't an issue for a good while. However, one day when I asked to go to the bathroom, she very rudely said to me, "No, your regular bathroom breaks are a constant disturbance in my class, and I will not tolerate it any longer." Now, I was very sensitive about this kind of thing, and I didn't have the courage to just rush out and go anyways. And it didn't help that I had drank a lot of juice at lunch prior to this class. Well, sure enough, 5 minutes later, the inevitable happened. I wet my pants in class. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't even look anybody in the eye. Mrs. Jerk immediately saw this. She got in my face and said, "You're going to the principal's office for causing a scene." When she said that, I started to cry and I ran out, crying the entire way there with my pants completely soaked. When I got there, the principal called my mom, and she was understandably angry. And she wasn't angry with me, but rather Mrs. Jerk, as she completely ignored my needs. The principal gave Mrs. Jerk a very clear warning to never do this again, and my mom got me ice cream on the way home. Now, I wish I could say that this was the end of the story, but what Mrs. Jerk did next to me in class has left a scar on me even to this day. So the next day, I was in her class again, and a couple friends that I had in that class comforted me before class started, as I was still horribly embarrassed about the whole thing. When Mrs. Jerk came in, she looked angry and stared right at me, and I felt myself gulp at the moment. About halfway through the class, I needed to go to the bathroom, and I asked her to do so. She got very angry with me, saying that I forgot what she told me yesterday and to never ask her again. Now, I was stunned, and my friends were giving her dirty looks. Now, I was scared of her, and once again, I wet myself in class. And when that happened, Mrs. Jerk absolutely was livid. She started yelling at me for peeing in her classroom. I began crying almost immediately this time, as I hate being yelled at. My friends came to my defense and comforted me, while some yelled back that she should have let me go when I asked to go, and that if she had done that, none of this would have happened. Well, she silenced all of them and sent me to the office again, and also gave me detention. When my mom was called this time, she was furious. Mrs. Jerk was called to the office immediately, and my mom laid into her. I remained outside the office while this happened, so I didn't catch most of what she said, but I do know that my detention was revoked, as the fault lied with Mrs. Jerk. I love my mom with all my heart, since she provides support for my condition and comforts me whenever I have an accident. And she even decided to make me my favorite dinner that night after everything that happened. Fast forward a week later, and I noticed that we had what I assume was a substitute in for Mrs. Jerk ever since that incident went went down. I then found out that she had been fired for refusal to adapt to children with specific needs, and apparently I wasn't her first offense. But I'm honestly just happy that I never saw her again and that our new teacher was much nicer. Now, when it comes to my life today, I have been doing very well since that little incident. I do still live with my parents, and while I am trying to job hunt, it's not easy as the number of different jobs that can accommodate for my condition are very few. My mom, being the sweetheart that she is, doesn't put any pressure on me to get a job and says that she wouldn't mind at all if I just stayed with her for as long as I want, which in all honesty, I never want to leave her. When it comes to my social life, I do have one, and all my friends know about my condition because it's one of the first things I tell them when we meet. Sometimes we joke about it, and if I ever have an accident in public, they're always there to shield me from prying eyes. We do laugh about it after it happens, and my shyness and attentiveness as a kid really helped me learn to pick up on social cues. That way, I can tell that my friends laugh with me and not at me. And I'm honestly just so glad that my life improved, especially with the way that I was treated by Mrs. Jerk. Wow, that's an insane situation, and I'm so sorry you went through that. It's so disappointing that some teachers act like this and they just don't believe their students or allow them to have some kind of accommodations. I remember having a few teachers like that when I was growing up as a kid, but never anything this bad. But honestly, it's really cool to see that your mom had your back, and I can only imagine how furious she must have been, because I know if that was my mom, she definitely would have lost her mind on that lady. Like, she would make sure that would never happen again. And it also really rubs me the wrong way that this wasn't the first time that this happened. It sounds like Mrs. Jerk has had it out for other kids in the past, and she's been treating kids like garbage for a while. Like, why would you bother becoming an elementary school teacher if you're not gonna love and respect your students? That is so awful, and she absolutely deserved to get fired. So good for you for moving on from this and finding a life after that incident, because this could have seriously been devastating towards your progress as an adult. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not forgiving my family and wanting to go no contact with them after all the awful things I've endured throughout my childhood and in my adult years? Because right now, my relationship with all of them is incredibly strained, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to give some backstory, I'm a 48-year-old male, and my childhood wasn't great growing up. As kids, my sister and I had to do daily chores, and I know I was on the lazy side because I hated cleaning up the house or pulling weeds outside or even mowing the lawn. But if we didn't get them done, there would be consequences. If we completed our chores, we were given an allowance. And I understand that back in the day, spanking was a very common punishment, so I'm not trying to say that this was unusual, but I will say that my father had and still has an explosive temper, and it's something that he has trouble controlling. So his spankings were probably rougher than they needed to be. I had trouble reading until my dad got me into comic books, and they were thrilling for me, and the perfect escape from what I perceived as my everyday despair. In school, I was the weird kid that really didn't have a lot of friends, and the teachers never really cared for me. I always saw myself as the outcast and the one that nobody wanted. So needless to say, my grades were never really good. A perfect example of my father's temper was when I came home with an abysmal grade. Now, I cannot lie, it was wretched. My teacher had asked me to get it signed by my parents, and I knew that it would be ugly when I finally showed it to them. Unfortunately, my father and I were the only two in the house, and he lost it on me. He read the score and just stood over me, and that's when things got physical. And he eventually stopped himself, but I was crying uncontrollably. He sat me down at the table and started going over the test paper with me just to see what I had missed and why I didn't understand the questions. Days later, I was sent to stay with my grandparents 5 hours away, and during that time, I came to find out that my dad had self-admitted himself to a clinic to work on his anger. Now, my mother was, in my opinion, incredibly manipulative. She would always overspend, and they would get into a financial crisis. Again, when my father eventually found out, he would explode, and she would end up crying. She would pack us up, and we would stay with her parents for a week or two. Then they would make up, and this cycle would repeat over and over again. There was one instance where she, or rather they, had overspent by a lot, and she asked me to forge my father's signature, also she could cash in on an investment. By this time, I was definitely over 18 years old, and I knew that once my father had found out, I would be arrested and put in prison. So I told her no. Now, when it comes to my sister, she hated me growing up. When it was time to do our chores, I always waited until the last minute. But when I did work, we always fought. She would punch me, spray Windex in my eyes, or just yell at me sometimes every single day. I was the annoying kid brother, but it wasn't all that bad bad. I mean, she had it rough too, but I always looked up to my sister. She was cool and popular and headstrong, and people loved being around her, and I wanted to be wanted as well. So whenever my chores didn't get done, because I was hiding in my room, I never told my parents about what had happened. Therefore, I received the spanking or I just got grounded. When my parents fought with my sister, she never backed down. Unlike me, who was afraid of consequences, she would instead push forward, and it didn't matter who it was. On the other hand, I was the fixer. I wanted everything to be peaceful. I wanted everybody to get along. I also wanted love and acceptance. I cried when people didn't like me, and I simply didn't understand why I wasn't good enough for other people to like me. I kept being rejected, and it honestly hurt me. Now, when I say I'm a fixer, let me give you an example. When my wife and I were married, my sister had my niece with a guy who we later found out was an addict. She had moved in with my parents, and my parents had just sold their house, so they were temporarily living in an apartment. My sister and the guy she was seeing had gotten drunk and ended up getting into an altercation. She went back to the apartment, and he came soon after, and this is all while my parents were out of town at the time. They then proceeded to get physical, and then the police were called. Eventually, he was taken away, and she called me in the middle of the night, where my wife and I packed up our daughter and went to her. When we got there, it was a very nasty sight, and we spent several hours cleaning things up. Now, I knew I didn't do it, but my father would be angry and possibly try to attack her for all this going on. All the while, she was on the phone with her boyfriend and his parents, and I just cleaned as best as I could while she sat on the phone telling her side of the story. Well, eventually my parents found out, and they drove back early, and my father was livid. When he walked through the door, he tried to go after my sister, but my mother held him back, and I decided to stay behind so the situation didn't escalate. When my parents got sick or had major medical issues, such as a heart attack, I would always go to them and try to help out. I would stay at the hospital, I would go to their home and help out around the house, but I finally hit my limit when I, at the age of 42 at the time, went to their house at the beach to help them clean up after a hurricane. I had to work my job during the day, in which I work from home, and then help them clean in the evenings. I had my phone at the table and was looking something up, and my father started yelling at me about how disrespectful it was. He went on this long tirade for 10 to 15 minutes, and I know it's disrespectful that I'm on my phone a lot, but it's my escape. I held in my anger until the next day when I was helping to cut down some small palm trees. I had apparently thrown the brush away in the incorrect container, and I heard all about it. And when that happened, I just broke. I finally yelled back and called my father every name I could think of, and that happened about 4 to 5 years ago, and I really haven't spoken with him ever since. However, there have been 3 major life events that have happened in my family, which have really only happened to my wife, and I feel as though none of them ever reciprocated the same towards me. For example, when my wife was hit head-on by a drunk driver, my parents watched our daughter, but never really stayed with us at the hospital. I was a nervous wreck, but I didn't have anyone there to talk to. She was in the hospital for almost a week because of her injuries and the surgeries that she needed. And yes, I understand that I probably shouldn't make this about me, since it really did happen to her. However, I was young, and I didn't know what to do or who to talk to. A couple of years after that incident, my wife was pregnant with our son. She kept getting very sick and having severe pain, and it turned out that she needed to have her gallbladder removed. While they were doing the surgery, they also found a benign tumor on her liver that had to be removed right then, or there was a chance it could rupture. Once again, I called my parents, but I was essentially left alone at the hospital. The final issue, after I had broken contact with them, was when my wife was diagnosed with an aggressive stage 3 form of cancer. My sister had reached out a couple of months before to try and reconnect and to see if we could actually mend our bond. However, when I called to tell her about my wife, she ghosted us for 7 months. My mother finally reached out via email, asking if she could do anything to help. She said that she had tried to email me before, but said that she had written my email address wrong. She asked if she could help, and I said that I would definitely need help. However, after that initial email to me, she never contacted me again, but did stay in touch with my wife. My wife had to go through daily radiation therapy for the first month, with a chemo treatment at the beginning of radiation and one at the end of radiation. She then had to have therapy, followed by a full hysterectomy, and finally a heavier dose of chemo for several months. She's now taking an immunotherapy, and she should hopefully be done by the end of the year. When we were sitting at the cancer treatment center and my wife was receiving her final chemo treatment, my sister called to let us know that she wouldn't be at my son's high school graduation because she wanted to be there for her sister-in-law's final chemo treatment. She then asked if she needed to send him a card or a present, but I told her no and to not worry about it. The day of his graduation, she didn't even call or text him, much less anything else. She She did call him about a month or so later just to ask him if he had any time to watch her dogs so that she could go to Hawaii with our parents. I told him to tell her no, and we haven't heard from her ever since. My mother did reach out to ask us to dinner since she was in town, and she brought some friends, I'm guessing as her emotional support. And trust me, it was an awkward dinner. She tried to hug me, but I could only ever do like this half hug. My wife invited her to our house because she was back in town, and she brought her friends again, and at the end gave me a hug and said that she loved me. But I simply couldn't bring myself to say it back. And trust me, I know how awful that sounds. I've never kept my wife and kids from talking or visiting my parents or my sister. However, I just don't want to do it. I'm just so tired. My parents also don't talk or act towards my wife and kids like they do with me, and my wife definitely notices this. I will say that my wife invited my mother because she is a saint. We were married young and we've grown up together. I wouldn't be the man I am today if it wasn't for the love and support of my wife and my kids. My wife and kids make me want to be better than what I was yesterday. Once, my father told me that I shouldn't expect him to leave me anything when he passes away, which was just another slap in the face to me. So I really just want to know how other people have handled this kind of situation. I mean, how do I let this all go? How do you let go of the hurt, anger, and emptiness? How do you get over your extended family not speaking with you because your parents or your siblings have poisoned them against you? It makes me wonder if I'll ever get over this, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. First and foremost, I just want to say that this really is an awful situation. Your childhood sounds awful, like seriously, you went through some awful stuff with your dad and your mom, and I just can't imagine being in that kind of situation. But also the way they took advantage of you when you were older, and they basically made you fix all of their problems all the time, like that really is unfair, and you definitely did not deserve that. And you also had so much on your plate as well. Your wife had so many medical issues going on, while also having scary surgeries that you're trying to get through, and then here's your family literally not supporting you. And based on what you've described, you are 100% right. It seems like they've never reciprocated anything towards you in the slightest. So honestly, I'm so sorry you went through this, but I can say that I'm glad you have your wife and your kids with you to buoy you up and help you get through these really awful situations. Because from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like your dad, your mom, or your sister were ever really there for you. My creepy entitled uncle is finally being cut out of my life after his wife, who is my aunt, passed away. And after years of dealing with his garbage, I'm honestly so excited to never contact him ever again. Here's what happened. So recently, I was able to finally go no contact with my creepy, awful uncle. And this is because his wife, who was my biological aunt, has now passed away. Now, just to paint a picture of what this man is like, his favorite hobby is mansplaining about things he knows very little about, while standing uncomfortably close to your face, and treats women like we are only put on this earth to serve his needs. Now, here's just a few things that he's done that's led me to making this easy decision. For starters, he threw a tantrum at my undergrad graduation because I didn't make him feel special enough. He was also recently charged with reckless driving for brake checking someone on a motorcycle just to teach this kid a lesson. He also once told me that I'm not fully an adult or able to make any decisions until I'm married to a man. And at the time, I was 25 years old and fully independent. I needed to share some information with him, which I did through text messaging, and he acknowledged receiving said information with a reply text message, but he forgot to relay this information to his wife, which caused a lot of drama. And I guess I was mistaken when I said I spoke with him, because his generation does not consider texting to mean such a thing. And this is still brought up years later whenever texts come up in a conversation with their generation, but I always ask how they would define texting, but they've never given me a straight answer. When my aunt became too sick to care for their household anymore, he dumped her in a nursing home. We were not allowed to get any medical information, but we were allowed to do things that he considered to be women's work, which is also known as doing all the labor, while still refusing to even let us know what care we needed to provide. He often neglected my aunt's care just to spite her sisters. Apparently, he didn't know my aunt required personal care items, and that I should give him some grace because he's a man. And apparently, hairbrushes fell into that category when I showed up and she had not had her hair brushed in over 6 weeks. When my aunt passed away, he wrote the obituary, and it was 75% about his career. It made her sound like an accessory in his life rather than being a person of her own. He also put in the background of the obituary an American naval ship, which doesn't even make any sense because neither of them served in the military and were not even American. A few days after she passed away, he called to tell me how wonderful he's doing, since I would be so happy to know he's doing well. At my aunt's funeral, he put a picture of himself on the podium, with her only partially visible in the background. And the last time we ever spoke, he bragged bragged about how he's gonna sell his brand new house for $200,000 more than what he paid for it. But honestly, I'm just so glad that I'm now free of that man, because overall, he is a completely awful human being. Yeah, your uncle sounds super entitled. This guy seriously not only says awful comments all the time, but he's always trying to prove a point that he's better than everybody else. He literally treats everybody around him like garbage. Who would brake check a person on a motorcycle just to teach him a lesson? I'm pretty sure this guy should not be teaching any kind of lesson, and the only lesson that he's gonna learn is that when you intentionally brake check someone, they're going to get in an accident, and then this guy's gonna get sued. And he would definitely deserve it. Also, the awful things he says and implies about women is just really disgusting. He's sitting there trying to be oh, you're not fully an adult until you marry a man. But it's what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense, especially because the original poster was 25 at the time they said that. That really does blow my mind, and that is so unbelievably sexist. But the icing on the cake of this guy being a complete jerk was the funeral for your aunt, where this guy literally made it all about him. He put a picture of himself on the podium. He wrote the obituary to be a career highlight reel instead of honoring, I don't know, his wife who just passed away. This guy is a grade A jerk. And with all that in mind, I honestly don't blame you for cutting him out of your life. He sounds like a real piece of work, and in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. An entitled Karen freaks out on me when I deliver her pizza to her house 5 minutes early. And as a result, not only did she not leave me a tip, but she also tried to get me fired by reporting me to my manager. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few years ago when I was a driver for a national pizza chain. This entitled Karen calls at around 2:30 p.m. and she explains to the manager that she's having a Bible study at her house at about 3:30 and wants pizza there exactly at that time. My manager explains we can't guarantee exact times, but we can be there within a 10-minute window on either side. So the entitled Karen supposedly agrees and we take the order. Now, it turns out that she's not actually in our delivery area, but she is slightly outside of it. Normally, we would have said no, but she was a little old lady without a car and we were kind of slow. So the manager asked if I would do it. I looked up the address, I saw that it was a quarter mile out of the area, and I just said okay. If anything, the tip would cover the gas. So we take the order and the manager explains the 3:30 situation, and we agree that we'll make the order at 3 o'clock, so it will be ready at around 3:10, and I would be at the house at around 3:25, 3:30. And it was honestly looking like it was going to be perfect. And you know what? Everything works out great. No traffic, every light is green, and I get to the door right at 3:25. Well, when I get there, this 60-something-year-old Karen opens the door and scowls at me. I say to her, "Hello, ma'am, I have your pizza right here." She says to me, "Why are you here?" I look down at the delivery slip to ensure that I have the right address. I say to her, "I apologize, ma'am, is this your address?" And then I rattle off her address. She says to me, "That's my address, but you're supposed to be here at 3:30. Why are you here?" I then smile and explain the 10-minute window and how I tried to be as close to 3:30 as possible. Well, she then goes on a tirade about how she now has to reheat the pizza because I'm so early, and this is the worst customer service she's ever experienced. Now, at this point, I just apologize and ask if she still would like the pizza. She lets out a dramatic sigh, grabs exact change from the hall table, hands it to me with a scowl that would shame a devil, and I give her the pizza. When I get back to the store, the manager is hanging up the phone. The customer apparently called back to the store right after I left and chewed out the manager about the large, rude driver, who's me in this situation, who arrived too early, and so the pizza was cold when her guests arrived for Bible study, who, by the way, were pulling up as I was leaving, when the manager refused to give her credit and informed her that she was not to be delivered to again for apparently calling me rude names over the phone, as well as for bragging about not tipping. This entitled Karen got irate, and she demanded corporate's number. Well, at this point, my manager was fed up, and he told her to look it up on the website. So the moral of the story is that even if you go out of your way and do a favor for and offer prompt service to some entitled Karen, they will still complain and still not tip you. Wow, talk about being overdramatic. This entitled Karen really freaked out about the original poster being 5 minutes early. Like, it was explained to her early on, especially on the phone, that there is a 10-minute window that they can reach. And you know what? The driver absolutely nailed it. They got lucky with all the lights and the traffic, and they were there 5 minutes early. And it doesn't seem like anything was missed at all. Like, as he was leaving, her stupid guests were rolling up into her driveway. So seriously, what's there to complain about? She got her pizza exactly when she wanted it. But she's pretending like this is some big offense of some kind. And you know what? I guarantee you, if he showed up at 3:35, then this lady would have lost her mind and said, "Oh wow, you're so late to my house. Like, it really seems like she just wants to like complain and give this guy a hard time. That is super obnoxious, and honestly, I'm so glad they banned her from ever ordering there again. Because I've learned that entitled Karens who act like this are just unhappy people. And if I was working at that pizza chain, I would be right there with the manager. I would never want to deal with her ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for putting a lien on my brother's house and refusing to remove it until he pays me the $32,000 that he owes me? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I do house renovations as a business. Even when I do work for family and friends at a discount, I have a contract. Well, my nephews are getting bigger and they want separate rooms. My brother asked me to help him finish his basement and make a couple of rooms down there, add a washroom and a kitchenette, and wire up a family room. I priced it out and I said I would charge him $32,000 including materials. And trust me, this was a sizable discount. The bathroom alone, I would charge anyone else about $15,000, and his wasn't even roughed in. Well, long story short, he never paid me. He always had excuses, and I paid for the material and I paid my guys for the work. We did it when I had downtime, so I didn't lose out on other money, but it still sucked to get shafted. So I put a construction lien on the house. He didn't care, and I wasn't gonna make him homeless. Well, this was all 2 years ago, and now that he got a new job, he has to move. And to get a new house, he has to sell his current one, which he can't do because there's a lien against the property. Well, he called me to get it removed. He promised he would pay me as soon as it was sold, but I told him absolutely not. You need to pay me right now. Well, my parents eventually called me, and they told me that they would pay what he owes. And I said I would agree so long as he paid them back, and if he didn't, then any money he didn't pay back had to come out of any inheritance we were getting. And that interest started accruing from the day of the loan. So after working out all the details, they agreed that was fair. My brother called me to scream at me for involving my parents and our inheritance, but I reminded him that he's the one that involved them and not me. He finally took money out from a line of credit and paid me with interest, which in my opinion is completely fine. I am a reasonable man. The house sold over asking price, and the finished basement suite made a huge difference on what he got. But now, even today, he is still upset at me for doing it, but I did everything legally and by the books. So honestly, am I the jerk for putting a lien on my brother's house? Because right now, my parents and his wife are not happy with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Like, your brother is insane for basically stealing $32,000 from you. You literally spent your time and energy making this downstairs basement exactly what he wanted. And instead of paying you, he just came up with excuses and thought, oh yeah, I'll get away with this. Like, that is crazy to me, and there is no good excuse for that. So I think the way you handle this is exactly how I would handle it. So this guy doesn't want to pay you? Okay, well fine. You can now not sell your house until I get my money back. Like, that is completely reasonable, and I think it really is smart in the long run for you and your business. And I also have to say, I love the fact that he has a contract even with family and friends. Like, it doesn't mean he's not going to do this at a discount, but he absolutely wants everything in writing. Like, that is not unreasonable, and in my opinion, that is a very smart business move. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your brother's an idiot for trying to screw you out of that money. And in my opinion, I think you did exactly what you needed to do to get your money back. Am I the jerk for changing my first name and then keeping that a secret for nearly 5 years? Because now that I've told my parents exactly what I've done, they are so upset with me that now they're refusing to show up to my future wedding. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and my parents decided to name my sister and I after American states. Now, I have permission to share my sister's name, which is Arizona, and I was called Pennsylvania at birth. Yeah, my parents are really weird. I guess they thought geographical names were cool, but I think there's a huge difference between calling your child Arizona or Dakota, or even Paris versus Pennsylvania. They really love America, so maybe they just wanted to be patriotic. For as long as I can remember, everyone has called me Penn or Penny. My parents insisted, though, that everyone was to call me by my full name, but most people could see how ridiculous my parents were being. My sister, who's 28 years old, didn't struggle as much with her name, since Arizona sounds a lot better than Pennsylvania, and the Grey's Anatomy character Arizona Robbins made the name seem quite cool as we got older. Now, I was mocked and teased as a child in elementary school because of my parents' insistence on my full name. They would berate my teachers for letting me write Penny on my work or on my books. So when I was 21 years old, I got my name legally changed to Penelope. Most people I had met in college college, had assumed that I went by Penny as a nickname for Penelope, and even my boyfriend's mother called me Penelope because I was too embarrassed to tell her that Penny was short for Pennsylvania. I kept it all a secret from my parents and close family because I knew that my parents would go crazy and accuse me of disrespecting their choice. Well, I'm getting married this summer to my lovely boyfriend who we will call Thomas. And as you all know, you have to say your full name in your wedding ceremony when doing your vows. I knew I had to fess up about the name change because the alternative would be hoping that they would keep quiet when they heard the name Penelope instead of Pennsylvania. I invited them over to my home and I tried to tell them in a really calm way that I had changed my name, but they freaked out. They said that I was disrespectful and that I was calling their choice dumb and that now they are refusing to attend the wedding. Now, I know I'm not the jerk for changing my name, but my parents are particularly upset about how I kept it hidden for 5 years before telling them. Most people I know agree with them, and they think that I should have had the courage to be honest with them years ago so they would have had time to get used to it instead of me dropping the news on them 2 months before my wedding and causing all this drama. A few other family members have dropped out, and my poor sister, who is a maid of honor, is having a nightmare dealing with all of this. My parents believe they had the right to know much earlier. So honestly, am I the jerk for changing my name and keeping it a secret? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, I can understand why you kept it a secret. Your entire life, your parents have ruined your reputation by forcing everyone around you to call you Pennsylvania. You got bullied at school, you got made fun of, and honestly, it seems like that's kind of your parents' fault. If they had just let you put Penny down or Pen as a name, you easily could have been more comfortable with your name and at least given you some kind of autonomy over your life. Anytime you used a nickname or something other than Pennsylvania, they would come down on you hard and be like, no, use your full name. Like, that is an awful way to treat your child, especially when they want to escape a name like Pennsylvania. And yeah, I'm with the original poster. That's kind of a weird name. And I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone by the name of Pennsylvania. I'm just saying in the context, it really does seem messed up. So honestly, based on their previous behavior, keeping all of this under wraps really makes sense. They obviously have a negative reaction to anything you try to do on your own, and they're doing exactly that once again with your wedding coming up. It's almost like they love hearing that name, despite the fact that it caused you a lot of problems in your life. So no, I don't think you had any obligation to keep the name that they gave you, especially when you consider how toxic they were about that name when you were a child. Because in my opinion, it seems like they were always going to be these toxic people in your life. And I absolutely don't think there's anything wrong with changing your name to Penelope. My entitled old neighbors assume that I do nothing all day simply because I work from home. And I'm honestly so tired of these busybodies, and I seriously wish that these people would mind their own business. So I recently moved into a new neighborhood, and the neighbors on 3 sides are old, retired, and very entitled. They are generally nice people and helpful, but also incredibly presumptuous and assuming. One commonality between all of them is that they assume that since I work from home, I do literally nothing all day. In fact, one of them frequently cracks jokes about how I'm able to do whatever I want during my workday. The other day, he called to ask a question, and I happened to be able to shift my schedule to work later in the day, so I could chat for about 30 minutes. So of course, now he assumes that since I can chat for 30 minutes whenever I want, that I just don't do anything at all during my workday. The same neighbor who always talks about how the guy who lived here before us was constantly working around the yard now states that they don't see me outside nearly as often. Well, newsflash guys, I'm working 2 jobs, and my wife works an additional job, and I'm trying to take on a 3rd side project. We effectively work 4 jobs between 2 people, all while raising 3 teenagers, mind you. And what were the folks who lived here before us doing? It was a retired guy and his wife who never had a job. So it's pretty obvious why they had time to just wander around the yard all day, every day. Another neighbor calls me yesterday to tell me something, and he first asked me if he woke me up. But mind you, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I tell him that I've been up working since about 5:15 in the morning, and when I tell him that, he quickly changes the topic. The same neighbor also assumed that we were rich kids from out of state that had our house gifted to us, when in reality, we spent almost 20 years in a shoebox on the other side of town, also we could save up and move into our dream home. But apparently, we're just lazy kids who are entitled, who simply don't want to work these days, right? Where we lived before, we were mostly in a low-income housing neighborhood with other people around our age, so we never really encountered any of this. But these entitled, old, retired people, they've been wrong about every single assumption. The neighbors the original poster is dealing with is the classic case of people who just need to mind their own business. Like seriously, why are they so obsessed with what you do all day? day. Like, is it seriously that strange of an idea that someone would work from home? Like, we all went through COVID, right? A lot of people left the office and went home to work. So it's just really weird for anyone to be like, oh wow, I must have woken you up at 9 o'clock in the morning because you do nothing all day. But in reality, you've been up since 5 in the morning. It's not like you're doing nothing all day, like you have stuff that you need to do. And for them to assume that you just had your house gifted to you, that in my opinion would really upset me. That is just straight up insulting. I mean, God forbid anyone save up for a house that is already like overpriced nowadays, let alone move into said house and try to mind your own business. So honestly, good for you for the way you're handling this, because it seems like these people are always trying to take shots at you and your employment. And hopefully one day you can find yourself with better neighbors. Am I the jerk for not getting upset when I was uninvited to my friend's wedding? Because after being treated like garbage by my friend's fiance, as well as her claiming that I'm just trying to steal away her future husband, I have now stepped away and decided that I will not be attending this wedding. And now, as a result, things are very tense in my friend group, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened over the weekend, but there is still so much tension going on. One of my good friends by the name of Matthew is getting married next month to a woman we will call Jennifer. Matthew and Jennifer are not their real names. Now, I'm a 25-year-old female, and I have known Matthew ever since high school. We've both connected when it came to video games, especially when we would play Minecraft. Matthew has had his fair share of girlfriends over the years, but when he met Jennifer 3 years ago, he said that he knew she was the one, and they are madly in love with each other. And I'm honestly so happy for the both of them. Last year, Matthew popped the question to Jennifer, and she said yes. But Jennifer's demeanor towards me drastically changed after the engagement. She was distant towards me, and she wouldn't even look at me, and she would hardly speak to me, which was really weird, since Jennifer was always so sweet and nice towards me. I would still talk to Matthew and meet with him and our group of friends, and sometimes Jennifer would be there, and she would still act cold and not speak to me much at all. So as a result, I kept my distance from Jennifer. Fast forward, and 3 months ago, we all received a save the date invitation, and their wedding is going to take place at Matthew's cabin 2 hours away, and they were going to keep it small due to the size of the cabin. So we were only allowed to bring one guest with us. And it was right then that Jennifer acted extremely harsh and hostile towards me. She said to me, "I bet you don't have a +1 since you are so into my man." And when she said that, I was taken back. I asked her what in the world she was talking about, and she smirked at me and said, "Oh, I know what's going on. You don't need to act stupid around me." Well, I just ignored her remark, and I told her my boyfriend was coming with me. Well, when I said that, she looked surprised, and then eventually she left. Now, I of course told Matthew about what Jennifer said to me, and he was not happy, so he made her apologize to me. Then, last weekend, I was invited by Matthew's sister to go dress shopping with her and Jennifer, and I declined at first because I wanted to keep my distance from Jennifer, but Matthew's sister assured me that she will deal with Jennifer and that our other friends will be there with us. So we go dress shopping, and I found a beautiful dress that I thought would be perfect, so I took a picture and sent it to my boyfriend since he planned on matching with me by getting the right color bow tie. I tried the dress on and it was a perfect fit, so I guess I just got lucky. But Jennifer was angry. She called me horrible names, claiming that I'm trying to steal her boyfriend and that I was officially uninvited from the wedding. In fact, she caused such a commotion that the employee of the store asked us to leave. I told Jennifer that I didn't want to come to the wedding anyways, but I was going to because my friend was getting married. I told her if she didn't want me at the wedding, fine. I don't care since I won't go to a wedding if the bride is going to be so rude to me. Well, Matthew and our friends found out, and I was getting text messages left and right begging me to just come to the wedding. But I told them I was happy to get uninvited, and I'll just spend the day with my boyfriend on the day of the wedding instead. But now they're all mad at me for not fighting hard enough. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update. Here's what they had to say. Okay, so my decision is officially final. I will not be going to the wedding, and there is no changing my mind about it. And instead, I will be sending a wedding gift to Matthew the day prior. I told Matthew and all my friends that I won't be going, and they simply cannot convince me otherwise. But Matthew also called me and asked if we can talk somewhere else. And I agreed to do this, but it was only so I could tell him in person so that he would know how serious I'm being. Fast forward, and when I met up with Matthew, I brought my boyfriend along with me. And of course, he begged me to come to the wedding, and he said he would beg Jennifer to let me attend. But I told him it's best if I wasn't there. I told Matthew that Jennifer has a problem with me. Period. End of story. He said that he doesn't understand, and he did ask her many times, but Jennifer would continue you to say that she was stressed out. At this point, I got angry, and I said that is absolute BS and he knows that. My boyfriend also intervened and said to Matthew that he needs to wake up and realize that Jennifer is crazy and that he can't keep defending her actions. Matthew said that he loves her too much and doesn't want to lose her. Well, my boyfriend and I got up and told Matthew to let us know when he has a backbone. In the meantime, it's best that we just don't talk. I messaged all of our friends in the group to let them know I'm keeping my distance from Matthew because of Jennifer. He is still going to be my friend, but at an arm's length. I will still be sending him a gift regardless, but I'm keeping my distance from Matthew. And it seems like he's in denial and can't comprehend what's going on at all. And ever since he was in high school, he would have a sense of denial, and he's doing that right now. And the weirdest thing about all of this is that Jennifer is nice to all of Matthew's female friends, but just not me. And I've also gotten a message from two of our friends saying that they've dropped out of attending the wedding, all because of Jennifer and the way she's acting. So thankfully, I have somebody on my side, especially when I consider how crazy Jennifer's acting. Yeah, Jennifer sounds incredibly unhinged, and the fact that Matthew is in denial about that is really not good. Like, she is literally coming after the original poster as if the original poster is coming after Matthew and trying to steal him away. Like, that is some weird level of jealousy that I just don't think is normal. I think having some semblance of like healthy skepticism is always good, but for her to act like this, in my opinion, is completely insane. There's no justifying her actions, and the fact that Matthew would even begin to try and back her up is really a red flag for the both of them. Like, where does this line in the sand begin and end? Is he gonna act like this anytime she's just blatantly in the wrong? Because that sounds like an awful situation as well. Like, can you imagine dealing with that, where Jennifer's saying some like outlandish stuff, and Matthew sitting on the sideline being like, oh, I just don't understand why people are mad at her. She's not doing anything wrong. Like, it sounds like he's marrying someone who is completely two-faced, and he really needs to address that now instead of after they get married. So truly, with all things considered, I don't blame you at all for stepping out of this wedding. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Because in my opinion, if someone treats you like garbage, and they treat you like you're a problem in their life, then I think it's important for you to believe them and move on. And when it comes to Jennifer and Matthew, it really seems like this is the case. An entitled Karen demands that she be allowed to cut in line at the grocery store, claiming that she's in a big hurry and she deserves to be in front of everybody else. But when she doesn't get her way, she has a public meltdown in a way that I've honestly never seen before in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was at Kroger yesterday buying some groceries. There were only 2 checkout lanes open, and it was around 5:00 p.m., so the afternoon rush was in full swing, and both lines were about 8 to 10 people long. I was in line for one checkout lane, and some mid-30s guy was in the checkout lane next to me. He was the last one in his line, and I was second to last in my line. A woman got in line behind me who looked to be about 70 years old, and you know when you meet someone where you just get a sense that they're kind of a jerk? Well, this lady was one of those types. She pushed her cart right up behind me, made a few comments that we all ignored about not having enough open registers, and that all of us are going to be here all day at this rate. Some time passes and we're all shuffling forward as the line moves up. The guy who is in front of the older woman is now next in line for his lane once the person in front of him finishes, and it's right about then that she starts spouting off her garbage. I hear the woman say to the man, "Excuse me, I'm in a big hurry. Would it be alright if I just went in front of you?" While she was saying this, she moved her cart up alongside his, grabbed the front of his cart, and began to push the cart out of the way so she could get in front of him. Well, the guy looks at her without saying anything. He grabs the handle of his cart so that she can't push it any further to the side, and takes a step forward so the front half of his cart is now between the 2 drink coolers on either side of the lane, so her cart can't fit alongside his. And then he goes back to looking straight ahead without saying a word. And when he did this entitled Karen lost her mind. She started loudly demanding that he let her go in front of him, saying that she has more stuff and she has to get home. And when that doesn't work, she starts saying that he's disrespectful. She says to him, "It's ladies first, but please go right ahead." And she goes on and on without stopping. She had the attitude of a woman who had rarely, if ever, been told no in her life, and was handling it about as well as you would expect. Well, this guy once again didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his AirPod case, and put both of his AirPods into his ears. Then he took out his phone and very slowly and deliberately slid the volume bar on his screen to maximum. Then he went back to staring straight ahead without saying a word. The entitled Karen complained at him for another minute or two until she finally noticed that he couldn't hear her. Then she went back to making snarky comments at his back while the guy's stuff was being rung up. The guy paid for his stuff and left without ever glancing at her, and she was absolutely seething the entire time. So honestly, honestly, that guy was my hero. He never even tried to argue with her and instead shut her down and went about his day. And I'm still honestly incredibly impressed. Wow, I can't believe that people actually act like this at a grocery store. Like seriously, if you have stuff to do and you're really in that much of a rush, then going to the grocery store is not the best thing for you to do. Like if this was actually an emergency, you would push your groceries to the side and run out the door. So of course she was lying and being like, oh, I've got to get ahead of you. I've got so many things to do. And it's just like, no, that's not happening. You're just being super entitled and you want to try and force your way through to the front of the line. Like everybody else waited their turn, so why can't this entitled Karen do the same? And you know what? If I have 50 items in my cart and I see someone who has like 2 or 3, then I will absolutely let them cut ahead of me and do whatever they want to do. But if they have an equal number of items as me, then there's no way they're going to cut in front of me. Like that's not going to happen and I'm not going to waste my time. So good for this guy for not responding, because I think that part alone is what drove this entitled Karen nuts. She clearly wanted some kind of argument and this guy did not give it to her. And that, in my opinion, is the best part about this entire interaction. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for being upset with my sister's family as they always come over to my house and let their kids run wild all over the place? Because right now, my wife is very mad at me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife has her siblings over for dinner every single week. She has 2 brothers and 2 sisters, but only one of them is married with kids. And trust me, these kids are not parented at all. Many times we have to stop a child from seriously injuring themselves because their parents just forget that they exist. Well, tonight I bought a cake for my wife's birthday that is next week. And this is because I will be leaving town for work and missing the date, but I still wanted to celebrate in some kind of way. Well, the oldest child, who's like 6 years old, he starts literally pounding the floor full-blown temper tantrum mode that I won't let him carry the cake lit with candles to the table. So I just ignored him and proceeded to carry it myself. After cutting the cake and bringing my wife her piece, the little brat jumps up and smashes his toy truck down in the middle of it. I get my wife another, but she just eats around it and says she doesn't mind. So I just brush it off. Minutes later, their third kid, who is a toddler, is seen running through my great room with a spoon full of icing that his mom gave him. And the middle child is using an egg roller as a missile and smashing it into my walls. Now, my wife just permits this anarchy, so I keep my mouth shut as usual. After the circus leaves our house, I'm cleaning up and doing dishes by myself. My wife then walks in and she lets out a sigh of relief that they are gone. Now, this is when I made the mistake of venting to my wife about how frustrated I am that her sister, her husband, and children have literally zero respect for our home. Well, her response was a rage-filled screaming match about how absolutely terrible I am and that she will make sure her sister's family is never present when I'm home. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for voicing my frustrations? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I do not think you're the jerk at all. I think the way her family was acting was incredibly disrespectful. And the fact that these kids were running around and your wife was okay with it, like that's insane in my opinion. Like they were running all over the place and destroying the birthday cake, as well as throwing things across the room against the wall. Like I don't know about you, but I would not want that to happen in my house. That's super disrespectful and there is no good excuse. So no, you are not the jerk for voicing your frustration, and I think your wife's response to your frustration is completely blown out of proportion. If anything, she probably knows the truth, but she's in complete denial. She probably feels the exact same way you do, but you said it first. And in my opinion, I think you have every right to feel that way because their behavior was absolutely awful. My awful new landlords are increasing my rent in a way that honestly is completely unfair, treating me like garbage and making me pay way more money than I'm comfortable with. But I'm honestly so glad I was able to get some revenge and force them to pay for all the injustices they put upon my shoulders. Here's what happened. Back in 2008, during the housing crisis, I did some work on the side for a customer's computer system. We got to talking and he had a cheap 1-bedroom duplex for rent that was simply too good to be true. It was a detached garage converted to a 1-bedroom little apartment, and it was as plain and basic as they come. The actual house was being rented out and he was charging the full amount price for the area, so this little garage conversion was pure profit for the landlord. I signed a lease for a fixed price that was almost half of what the going rate was for a 1-bedroom apartment in the area. It had no frills and was plain as can be with the cheapest appliances possible. Light fixtures were from the early 80s, and this place had the cheapest faucets and countertops that money could buy. The elderly landlord and I had an arrangement. I could fix it up so long as I could keep the rent low, and he would allow me to pay for the remaining balance on upgrades if and when things broke. Well, years go by and I'm still in this one-bedroom garage conversion and making progress on updating the features. The kitchen faucet is gone, and in its place is a new fancy sprayer head faucet with a bar-style glass cleaner installed on the side. The old toilet was replaced with a water-saving tank, and a bidet was installed. And on top of that, the 80s lights were gone, and an LED smart home fixture was installed. Around 7 to 8 years go by, and my rent is still half of the normal going rate for the area, and my landlord is happy with our arrangement. Sadly, he has a heart attack, but surgery saves his life. And because of that, he is no longer able to maintain his active lifestyle and hands the reins of being a landlord to a property management company. Now, this company is as shady and money hungry as they come, and they get a percentage of the monthly rent for their role in taking over the landlord's duties. They immediately hate me and my rental agreement from the start. The month they took over, my rent goes up the maximum limit of 10% on top of the 5% the cost of living increased over the year. Now, I'm not happy with this, as this is a significant bump in my cost, so I decide to suck it up. But as a silent protest, I stop making upgrades to the house that first year. 12 months later exactly, I get a notification that my rent will increase another 10% plus 5% more for cost of living increase. This is yet another blow to my finances, but I can't really complain as my rent is still well below the average cost of the area. Another 12 months go by and another 15% essentially goes up, followed by another one the following year. Now, this entire time, I had been saving a good portion of my paychecks as a down payment for a house, but these rent hikes were hurting my ability to set aside money for this purpose. My landlord was not happy with the property management company that he hired, but he couldn't get out of the contract because they were doing maintenance and facility repairs like clockwork. Well, COVID hits and I had been in this place for 12 years by this point. My rent was still under the average for the area, but not by much. Seeing as this was now just a crappy one-bedroom apartment, I was looking for houses to buy to get me out of this rent gouging arrangement that I was in. Right at the peak of the COVID scare in 2020, a pipe burst in the kitchen and flooded the floors, ruining the crappy cabinets, the carpets, and the furniture I had nearby. I had renter's insurance that covered most of the cost of what I had lost, and while it wasn't the nicest furniture, my couch was a total loss, with my desk, my entertainment center, and my speaker also being severely damaged. Well, in comes the property management to assess the repairs and to gut out the damaged wood and carpets. I offered to pay for upgraded wood and countertops, as well as request hardwood floors, but nope, they completely denied my request. I offered to do the work myself as I'm fairly handy, and yet again, I was denied, but this time they gave me an actual written letter stating that I'm not to do any work or maintenance on the apartment. I contact my landlord, who has his hands tied because this was the arrangement that we had, and at this point, I'm at a loss of what to do because this property management company is not setting me up with a temporary place to live. They're doing all the work while I'm working from home to watch my possessions. There is literally a door-sized hole in my wall as they spend 2 weeks fixing everything. Then they started doing stuff that I honestly didn't expect. They threw out my upgraded faucet, which was undamaged and worked perfectly fine by the way, as well as the upgraded sink, the light fixtures, and the tile work that I had done, as well as the bathroom faucet, which wasn't even part of the floor damage. They then removed an outlet which was originally part of the apartment to save on cost. I was so mad at them, and I complained via letters, via phone calls, and talking to the maintenance supervisor. It took 2 months to do all the repairs, and at the end, they sent me a notice that my rent was going up due to some loophole they had, stating there was neglect in the apartment that I didn't report. Now, I was done with their BS, and I pulled my resources. I called in the favors that I could, and I found the house that I wanted. I gave them a 30-day notice to leave at the end of my lease, along with an invoice of all the repairs I made to the apartment over the 12 years I was there. I attached a copy of my original lease agreement, a copy of all photos I took of before and after repairs I made, a bill of how much I paid, and a request of a refund of the past 6 months of additional rent hikes due to this supposed neglect like they stated in the letter. I had a running tally of all the receipts, as well as the work performed and the cost of not being allowed to live in a motel during the work, and this totaled to about $9,700. At the same time, I submitted all of this to the courts as I knew they would contest all of it. My landlord was on my side during the court hearing and was even giving testimony that he in fact allowed me in the rental lease agreement that I could do my own repairs. Well, I won within 4 hours and was awarded $4,700 as the judge removed all billable hours that I included. The judge was harsh to the the lawyer for the property management, saying his client must obey the law and put the tenant up for housing during the construction. Nearly 4 years later, I finally got my lump sum, including penalties and late fees, which totaled to about $7,500. Sadly, my old landlord passed away, and his properties passed to his son, who immediately fired the property management company sometime earlier last year. And I'm honestly so glad that something good came out of that awful living environment. Wow, those people seriously had it out for you. Like, why would they have such a problem with you fixing up the place, all in exchange for like lower rent? You and the former landlord agreed to this. Like, it's so unfair for them to come in all of a sudden and start increasing the rent, almost as if they're retaliating against you for having a good deal. But thankfully, you were able to get some revenge because this property management company was absolutely awful, and the way they treated you was absolutely unfair. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that I won't be inviting her to my wedding simply because I don't agree with her choice of a +1? Here's what happened. My sister and I, who are both 28 years old, are half-siblings who were raised by our mother, but we have different fathers. Our childhood was not a good one, and our relationship has always been very complicated. The biggest reason is how bad our mother was and how we were raised in a very toxic house, but also because sometimes the men our mother would bring to meet us would show more interest in me than in her, and it made my sister very jealous. There were also some messed up things done by our mother regarding our fathers that created several issues. We never knew these guys, so it was easy for our mother to dangle ideas in front of us as kids just to provide herself with some kind of entertainment. Now, I wasn't a great guy in my teens. I had a lot of girlfriends and very much had a reputation for not being great to the girls I was with. One particular ex of mine, we will call Emily, that's not her real name, is someone I dated for 2 months, and I broke things off with her because I wanted another girl more. But Emily grew way more attached to me than any of the others and was hurt that I didn't want her, and I was kind of a jerk about it at the time. It was a big deal to her, and for the next year until graduation, she would try to get me back, and I was a lot crueler than I needed to be about saying no. Now, something that helped me grow as a person and be a better human was my sister finding our grandparents and finding good people who wanted to know us. That, alongside with growing up in college, really helped me, and by the time I was 25, I had realized that I was bisexual with a stronger attraction to guys, and part of my issues stemmed from self-hatred that my mother drilled into me because she was grossly homophobic, and I ended up falling in love with an amazing guy. About a year ago, my sister ended up becoming friends with Emily, and she brought her to dinner at our grandparents once when my fiance and I were there. Now, Emily was pissed to see me, and while I did apologize, Emily needed to be asked to leave by our grandparents because she was ranting and raving at me and expressing very clearly how messed up it was that I ended up with a guy instead of her, and about the way I treated her. Now, my sister wasn't that happy about our grandparents kicking Emily out of the house, and they told her that she disrespected me and that I'm family. Now, Emily still despises me, and my sister has stayed in touch with her, and Emily has tried to contact me and my fiance ever since that dinner. Fast forward, and I found out a while ago that my sister planned to make Emily her +1 for my wedding, and I told her I did not want that and it didn't seem appropriate. My sister actually told me that I didn't get to decide her +1. We bickered over it, and it all resulted in a week ago of me telling my sister that I would not be inviting her to my wedding. Well, my sister said that I was being just as much of a jerk as I was back then, and that it is awful that I'm not going to invite her over her choice of a +1. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all in this situation. Like, don't get me wrong, the way you treated Emily was really messed up, and I think there's only so much you can do for trying to fix that situation, but in my opinion, if you allow your sister to bring Emily to your wedding, Emily will 100% ruin everything. Like, seriously, just look at the way she acted during dinner. Do you really think she won't try to do something at your wedding just like she did at that dinner at your grandparents' house? Like, she obviously doesn't care about embarrassing herself in front of everybody. Who's to say she wouldn't do that in the middle of your wedding? Like, I can see her standing up when the priest is like, "Is there anyone who has an objection?" and then stopping all the progress for your wedding right then and there. So I don't blame you for a second for saying, nope, you're not coming along if you're bringing Emily. And also, it really seems like your sister is only doing this because she wants to get back at you in some kind of way. Like, it really seems like she's doing this out of spite, and so she can make sure that your wedding does not go as planned. And in my opinion, that is more than enough reason to say that you don't want her to show up at your wedding. I'm in the process of getting a better job, and right now, I'm struggling to find the best way to quit my current job without burning any bridges. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so basically up until the last week, week, my manager has not liked me very much. I've been here for 3 months, and they've already implied that they're gonna fire me once on the basis that I apparently wasn't bussing other people's tables, which is completely false. They have never told me good job, but instead just given me criticism, and they also started scheduling me less than 3 days a week. But recently, as of this week, there was a bump in my shift to 5 days a week with a double. I was also brand new to restaurant serving when I started, so I think I'm doing pretty well. I haven't had a single order or a drink sent back, and the only time someone complained to a manager was because they ordered sides with a dish that didn't come with sides and then complained that they were charged for them. I have been getting better at not getting weeded out and have recently been able to handle my section being full with no issues. And I've even gotten better with the check splitting of large groups. So anyways, 2 servers recently quit, and all of a sudden they're being nice to me. They're not throwing as much criticism at me, and they're talking to me more like an adult. But they still have their friends that they still treat better than me. But even though the manager's attitude towards me has gotten better, I'm still not happy with the money or the hours. And I know there is no way for me to get out of doing lunch shifts because I don't have an excuse like going to school, which is something that 80% of the other employees do. The place I'm interviewing at only does dinner, so there's no possibility of early shifts, and I've heard great things about the money there. Plus, they allow their staff to have piercings and tattoos, which I would love to be able to wear my septum piercing again. Plus, I know 2 of the managers, so I feel like I will be more comfortable and secure there. My interview is on Wednesday, and I'm scheduled at my restaurant for the rest of the week. Like I said, since 2 people quit, they buffed my schedule back up, and now I have more dinner shifts. I think they just don't want another server to quit, so that's why they're being nice, to be completely honest. If I'm hired, I would like to start training immediately, but it's sort of difficult to get people to take shifts, and I don't have the money to pay people to take them. I would like to actually keep the lunch shift during my training so that I have some sort of tip income during that time. So what I don't want to happen is me giving my 2 weeks notice, telling them that I can work lunches during that time, and them just taking me off the schedule. Alternatively, I don't want to just dip out and then not be able to use them on my job history. I don't want to burn the bridge because we live in this area, and everyone knows everyone in the industry here. But if it comes down to that, I have to prioritize myself and not the restaurant. I guess if I need to get shifts covered this week and I can't, I will just have to call out, which I haven't done yet at this job. So does anyone know the best way to go about doing this? I have told 2 to 3 other employees that I'm applying elsewhere, and one of those employees has already quit, citing that he hates this place. But other than that, I'm fairly certain that the manager will be taken by surprise. I'm honestly so lost, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, but honestly, you can do this either way, and I think it will be completely fine. Even if you just suddenly said, hey, I'm quitting, you really can still use them on your job history. And if that relationship with that restaurant really is that important, then just put your 2 weeks notice in and say exactly what you said. You can say, hey, I can do my 2 weeks notice, but I can only work lunches. Like, that's the best thing for your schedule, and that's the best way you can help them out. And then you literally just go from there. Like, these people are not your friends, they're coworkers. And thankfully, you saw through exactly the way they're treating you. They're only being nice to you because suddenly they need you. And in my opinion, based on what you've described, you absolutely deserve to work at some place that's better than this. A group of entitled jerks demand that they get served their food faster than anybody else, claiming that they had been waiting for over 45 minutes and that if they didn't get their food right away, they would be walking out. And after watching this guy chew out this waitress over and over again, I decided to stand up and put this guy in his place. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so Saturday evening, just before 6 p.m., my wife, myself, and our daughter go to dinner at a local sports bar. As you can imagine, on a Saturday night at this time, it is fairly busy, especially considering it was the Kentucky Derby night. We get seated right away and start perusing the menu. I get up to a high chair, and on my way back to the table, a group of 3 men come in and get seated catty-corner to our table. And this is about 5 to 10 minutes after we had just been seated. The waitress comes to our table first, as we were there first, and these entitled jerks get upset that she didn't see them first. They then snap at her. They force a drink order on her, and then they say, "Make it snappy, we're in a hurry." There was no regards for being polite, just this hurry up and service attitude that honestly was so obnoxious. We get our drinks and put in our orders, and then they get their drinks and they put in their order. Maybe 10 minutes go by, and one of the jerks at that table is visibly seething. He calls over the waitress and starts going in on her. He starts shouting, "Where's our food?" Well, she kindly explains that they have the order in, and the kitchen is working on it right now. And mind you, it's only been 10 minutes on a Saturday night, and the Kentucky Derby is going off in about 40 minutes. Another 5 minutes or so go by, and again, the waitress is called over, she's being berated, and they're now throwing around the line that they have somewhere they need to be. And it's right then that the exaggerations start to flow in. We've been waiting for over half an hour for our food, as well as all this other garbage coming out of their mouth. At this point, I openly stare at them. I catch one of them in the eye, and I just give him the disappointed dad head shake, and I don't say anything. It's only been about 15 or 20 minutes that they've been waiting since ordering, and at this point, my table's food comes out, and my family starts eating. As soon as the food hit our table, the one angry jerk is visibly livid. He calls over the waitress and starts going in on her again. He starts screaming, "We've been waiting for over 45 minutes," which is just a huge exaggeration. He then says, "If the kitchen doesn't have our food plated and out immediately, we are leaving. This is ridiculous. This has been the worst service ever." Now, the waitress does her best to calm them and goes to check on the food, but these jerks don't even give her a chance to come back, as they just get up and start to leave. Now, I had had a pint or two by this point, so I catch the same guy's eye and I loudly say to him, "Looks like big guy could probably skip a meal anyways." Now, the face he gave me honestly made me believe that he couldn't believe that I just said that, and he starts trying to tell me about how long they've waited and how terrible the service is. But I held my hand up and I just cut him off. I said to him, "Buddy, you guys got here 10 minutes after my family did. You've not been waiting 45 minutes. I don't care if you're in a hurry. That's your problem, not the restaurant's. You chose to come here full and well knowing that you had somewhere to be, and now you're mad that a busy sports bar is taking more than 20 minutes with your food? And this is the same generation that calls my generation lazy and entitled? That was the most entitled display of behavior I've ever seen." Well, when I said that, this guy was flabbergasted. He starts saying something about how, well, we didn't ask for your input. And I responded by saying, "You are adults in public who literally just threw a very public temper tantrum. You're subject to the judgment and criticism of your peers when you are in public. That's how public works, buddy." He then started to just self-destruct into a litany of huffing noises of disgust. He then turned to the waitress and said, "I want to speak to a manager." But I responded by saying, "I don't work here, you idiot. I'm a paying customer just like you should have been. What's a manager gonna do?" He then turned on his heels and started walking out with his buddies, so I started to boo them as they walked out the door, and no less than 3 other tables joined in, shooing them out the door along with me. Eventually, the manager and the waitress both came by our table and thanked me and told me that I said exactly what they were thinking. And even though my wife was mortified that I did that, I will happily do that again if I ever see that type of behavior in public. That is honestly so cool that you actually stood up to those guys, because seriously, if I was sitting near that, I would be so annoyed. I can't stand when people go into a restaurant and they're like, "Oh, we've been waiting here for 45 minutes. But it's like, dude, we got here before you and we've been only waiting for what, 10 minutes? Like seriously, just get a grip and be patient for once in your life. So good for you for saying exactly what everybody was thinking. And hopefully those entitled jerks learn their lesson and they don't ever act like that in public ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for walking away from my parents after they told me they're going to adopt my brother's biological sibling? Because after years of feeling neglected by my parents, as well as having my needs put on the back burner, I now feel myself being left behind in my own family. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents became foster parents after I was born, and they actually adopted 3 kids from foster care before they decided to stop fostering. At the time, my parents said they wanted to focus more on their own kids, but really, I think they were struggling with 4 of us, and I think near the end, fostering became more for the money than anything else. As the oldest and their biological kid, just so they didn't worry if I felt like I belonged or not, I had to make more sacrifices than my siblings. Stuff for me just came last. I got less than my siblings too, and gifts to me were always cheaper, so that they could splurge a little for my siblings. So for Christmas, I'd maybe get some clothes and some books, even though I don't really read, and my siblings would get toys and tablets and stuff that they loved. And even for my birthday, my cake would be super small, and my gifts would basically be just essential things that I might need. When I was 12 years old, my grandparents bought me a laptop for my birthday, and my parents pressured me into giving it up just so it could be used as a family computer instead of a personal one just for me. I said no the first time, but my parents weren't going to accept it. I don't get to go out with my friends often because my parents don't want to use uses gas driving me, and they don't want to give me money to go eat or just to see a movie or anything. They also send me to birthdays without a gift for my friends, so I've asked my grandparents for money sometimes to buy a gift for my friends. But my parents never send my siblings without gifts for their friends. My parents wanted me to get a job, but they only wanted me to do that so that I could put money into the household. Since I get the short end of the stick, I don't want to add money to make everyone else's lives easier but not mine, and I don't believe that it would make my life any easier. In October, my grade will have the chance to go on the school's interactional trip. We were told about it in February so we can save and get numbers. I pleaded with my parents to find a way to send me. I got my grandparents to help me talk them through it, and they agreed, so they started saving. Then, a week ago, my parents announced that my younger brother's birth mom is pregnant again, and she approached them to do a private adoption so her kids could all be raised together, with my parents agreeing to do this. So they sat us down and told us, and mentioned that they had already spent the money saved for the trip. They said things will change for a couple of years, but we will have a new member of the family. Now, when I heard this, I was so pissed off and hurt that I just walked out. I walked away from my parents and ignored them when they called me back. They were so angry about it, and when my grandparents found out, they offered to pay for the trip for me. But my parents said they would stop them paying directly, and if they give the money to me or to them, they will make sure that it goes on more important things. My parents are now calling me childish and petty for walking away like I did. So right now, I need to know if I'm the jerk in this situation, because I am still so upset and I now just don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. I'm so sorry that your parents are acting this way, because I think you got it right earlier. It seems like they're only in it for being a foster parent because they get money out of it, not because they actually care about the kids they're watching. And also, why should you have to sacrifice all this stuff just so your younger siblings can have a better life than you? It really seems like your needs are completely put on the back burner, and that is honestly just not fair. Now, when it comes to that trip, I think there might be solutions available with the school. Like maybe if you talk to like one of the school counselors or something like that, they might be able to help you out and be like, okay, we can pay for this trip for you. And trust me, you would not be the first person to make that kind of request. So hopefully this all works out for you in some kind of way, because honestly, the way your parents are acting is completely inappropriate. My wife of 8 years cheated on me with someone who isn't even real, as she fell for a TikTok scam thinking that a musician was trying to hook up with her. And now that I found out, I am completely heartbroken. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old male, and I noticed a couple weeks ago that my wife was acting distant and very uninterested in me. I asked her if she was mad at me, to which she said, "No, I've just been in a funk." Now, I just felt that something was off, so I waited until she fell asleep, and then I went through her phone, which is something I have never done since we were together, and we've been together for over 10 years. Well, upon opening her phone, I found a text thread with a guy, and they were calling each other babe and baby and stuff along those lines, along with some extremely explicit text messages and pictures. Well, when I saw that, I woke her up and I pretty much told her that we were done. I left to cool off, and I came back, and her and I talked more, to which she said he was a musician and he randomly added her on TikTok, and they started talking innocently, but it then led to something more. She told me she hadn't felt appreciated or wanted in a while, and it just sort of happened, but she didn't even know what she wanted. I basically told her that if she wanted to run off with some musician, then do whatever you want, but you are definitely going to be the one to explain it to our kids. And for reference, we have 2 very young girls. She went to bed and I just stayed up all night, just in complete disbelief, trying to work out my feelings. In the morning, her personality changed and she was very apologetic and asked if we could talk later that day. I said sure for the sake of our kids, and I pretty much cried all day, something I rarely do, but I wanted to try and work through it because I don't want my kids to grow up with only me in their lives 50% of the time. I went through the messages as I took pictures of them in case I needed them for divorce court, and I noticed that all the pictures that were sent to her from this guy were from this person's social media, which really seemed odd. As we talked later that day, I asked her more details of them messaging on TikTok, and she said to me, well, it wasn't his main account, it was another account, and that's why she gave him her number, because he said his other account was going to be banned soon. Well, this immediately confirmed my suspicion that it was a scammer or a catfisher, and simply did a Google search of TikTok musician scam. And when I did that, I found a video from the actual musician stating that he was getting reports that people were making fake profiles pretending to be him him to scam women. So yes, my wife of 8 years was emotionally cheating on me with a fake person. And now I honestly don't know what to do. I love her with all of my heart, but I'm honestly broken. We have never had a trust issue in 10 years of being together, and all of that is now gone. I admit that I haven't been the perfect husband. I work in professional sports, so I'd work 14 hours a day and come home and just play video games for an hour before bed just so I can de-stress. And then I would do it all over again 5 days in a row. So I get that I can be responsible for the deterioration of our relationship that may have pushed her to do this, but I just don't know how I'm supposed to trust her and also unsee the text messages, especially the explicit stuff. So honestly, am I overreacting for being hurt and not knowing how to move forward? Because at this point, I feel hurt and very confused. Okay, this honestly is so messed up on so many reasons. For starters, not only in my opinion did your wife try to cheat on you, but your wife is also a complete moron. Like seriously, who would add somebody on TikTok and be like, oh yeah, now's my chance to cheat? Like that place is riddled with scams exactly like that, and you have to be a complete idiot to send messages like that to somebody you don't even know. Like how is that not more obvious to your wife? For reference, she is 33 years old. Was she seriously expecting to run away with this musician and start a new life? Like her attempt at cheating on you in the first place, in my opinion, would really upset me. But the fact that it wasn't even real in the first place, and that she did this all for nothing is honestly so devastating. Like that's really heartbreaking because what if it was real? Would she really try to run off and be with this musician guy? Like that is just so unbelievably toxic. So no, I don't think you're overreacting at all, and I don't think you working a lot and playing video games would ever lead anybody to make this kind of decision. Like there are so many steps she should have taken if she really felt that this relationship was falling apart. It's like she went from feeling left out of this marriage to suddenly being like, okay, time to cheat, and that in my opinion is just completely unfair for you. So hopefully for the sake of your 2 daughters, this all works out, because what she tried to do is completely unacceptable. Today I messed up by being a bad girlfriend and only thinking about the money that we're making in our house after my boyfriend lost his job, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been with my boyfriend for almost a year now, and we've been living together for 3 months. I work a salon and make just under $30,000, whereas he makes almost $150,000 at his job. Unsurprisingly, since we've been living together, he has covered all of our living expenses, which is a blessing. 3 days ago, he came home and told me that he lost his job, and I straight up panicked, and the first thing I asked him was how we were going to live. When I said that, he didn't say anything. He looked super defeated and just went in and took a shower, and then afterwards he went for a walk and still didn't say anything to me. I figured he must have been panicking as well and didn't know what to say or how to deal with the situation. Well, ever since then, we have barely talked. I went home last night and my dad could tell that something was wrong, so he asked me and I told him that he lost his job, and his first response was to say, that's alright. He's the smartest kid I know, and I know he'll find a job that pays him double. I then told my dad everything, and he said to me that all my boyfriend really needed was for me to reassure him and hug him. But instead, I only thought about my livelihood and showed no concerns for him or the difficulty of being jobless. I brought it up to him this morning and he said he doesn't care about the job and he can always find another job by next week if he wants to, and has enough savings to maintain our current lifestyle for over a year, but told me he was very demoralized and he was very hurt by what my priorities were in the situation. And right now, I feel like such a jerk and an unsupportive girlfriend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this is a really rough one. You really did jump to this weird conclusion that your life is pretty much going to be upended instead of trying to comfort your boyfriend and be there for him. Like, I can only imagine how much that must have hurt. He was probably looking for a shoulder to lean on, but instead he got bombarded with his girlfriend basically saying, wait, how are we going to live now? So in that regards, I think you definitely got your priorities mixed up, and I think at least moving forward, you can learn from this and do better in the future, because the way you handled this situation absolutely was very rude. Am I the jerk for saying that I don't care about my half-sister's wedding and that I don't even want to go after she expressed exactly how she feels about me? Because right now, my mom and grandparents are devastated that I don't want to attend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my half-sister is somewhere in her 20s. I think she's maybe 26 or 27 years old, but I honestly don't know. We're not close enough for me to remember her exact age, even though we lived in the same house when I was younger. And for reference, I'm a 16-year-old female. My half-sister lost her dad when she was 5 or 6 years old, and then mom met my dad and they got married and had me and my 2 younger siblings, who are 13 and 12 years old. I was still in elementary school when my half-sister moved out, and she basically had nothing more to do with me. She would visit to see mom, but she didn't really care about the rest of us, and would be forced civil if you know what that means. Like, you could see she was forcing herself to say anything to us, and to not roll her eyes or look disgusted that we were there. I remember being 9 and hearing her and mom fight outside the house one day, with my half-sister telling my mom to stop acting like my dad was part of her family, that mom married him, but he was just her husband, and she was not going to treat him like he was her parent, and my mom argued that dad had done nothing wrong and didn't deserve outright rejection of even a friendly relationship. My half-sister told my mom the only person in the house she cared about was her, and that my dad could give her a kidney and she would still say that he's just mom's husband, and she wouldn't care if we, meaning my dad, me, and my siblings, all dropped dead because we meant nothing to her, not even a little bit. Well, fast forward and my half-sister is getting married now, and I'm so over all the talk and the fighting about it. The fight came from my half-sister saying that dad wasn't going to have any kind of role in her wedding, and neither were my siblings or me. She said we were a guest that she tolerated and that we were nothing else. Dad had hoped that he would get a dance with her at least, and my mom wanted that for him as well, because she feels like my dad has done a lot for my half-sister over the years and has always done his best to be a good member of her family. Well, my half-sister said we were only invited because of mom, and that's all there is to it. My parents talk about it a lot, and they were talking about whether mom should go alone, but they didn't want to upset us by making us miss our big sister getting married. I jumped in unannounced and said I didn't care about her wedding, and I definitely didn't want to go. My mom looked so devastated to hear that, and my dad spoke to me afterwards and said that I could have handled it a lot better because all 4 of us are mom's kids, and she never wanted our relationship with our half-sister to be so bad. Afterwards, my mom apparently talked to her parents, and they asked me why I had to be so cruel, and asked me if I didn't realize that giving up means there is no hope for a better relationship with my half-sister in the future, and how this is completely unfair to my mom. Well, my mom was horrified when they said that to me, but between my grandparents and my dad, I'm honestly left wondering if I did something wrong. So am I the jerk for not wanting to go to my half-sister's wedding? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think it's pretty clear that your half-sister is very toxic, and honestly, it really seems like there's no reason for that toxicity. Like, she just hates you for no good reason, and is essentially ostracizing herself from everybody else in the family besides her mom. Like, she doesn't even care if you're alive or dead. You literally mean nothing to her. I mean, you heard her say that. And like, what does your family expect you to do in a situation like that? Your half-sister expressed all of these opinions in front of her mom, the same person who's giving you a hard time for saying, no, I'm not going to show up. Your mom is blatantly excusing this behavior and basically allowing it to happen at your expense. Why should you have to walk on broken glass that your half-sister literally threw down in front of the entire family? Like, shouldn't your mom at least step in and be like, wait a second, why would you talk to your family like that? Because as far as I'm seeing, this all pretty much falls on the half-sister. So if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would show up to that wedding. Her behavior and her attitude towards you and your family is completely unacceptable. And if they really want to harbor some kind of relationship in the future, then they need to take that up with the stepsister and not you. Because it doesn't sound like you've done anything wrong, as it sounds like any animosity comes exactly from your stepsister. My entitled parents demand my kid's social security number, as they claim they want to start up a bank account in his name. But after my parents use my name for their own financial gain, as well as the multiple times they've declared bankruptcy over the years, I'm concerned they would only use my son's social security number to try and ruin his life in the way they tried to ruin mine. Because right now they are very angry that I won't hand it over, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad thinks that I should just give him my kid's social security number as if it's somehow just no big deal. He wants to start a bank account for my little guy. It sounds harmless, but my parents suck at taking care of their finances. They've been bankrupt at least once and bailed out every few years by my grandparents while they were still living. When I moved out at 20 years old, I found out they had overdue utility bills in my name, so I could not open up any accounts for my first apartment until I paid it off for them. They took money from me while I was a minor while I was working at my first job. They also emptied $1,500 from my savings account and never paid it back to this day. So no, I don't trust them at all. My parents have been hounding my husband and I for weeks, if not months, and we have been politely dodging it. And because of that, my parents started getting really upset. So I politely told my parents that my baby already has a savings account and they can contribute to it if they like. And boy, did they flip out when I I told him that. They still demanded my baby's social security number and then starts calling us names. And at this point, I just flat out say no. I tell them they didn't need his social security number to open a savings account in which the baby is a beneficiary, but they countered that they do need that. They then proceeded to tell me that my baby won't receive any money from them until they get it. But the thing is, I don't care. I'm also pretty sure they don't have any money anyways, besides the inheritance money after my grandmother passed away, that they are literally just smoking through. My dad even had his grandfather change his will less than 6 months before his death, and right when he was showing signs of dementia. My grandpa, right before he died, asked me what my dad had him sign and showed me the new will asking me to translate it. And basically, it was leaving the grandkids out of the will and making my dad the sole proprietor, the executor, and giving him power of attorney. Everything was completely changed. Now, with no point in contesting it, my husband and I want to cut ties and move very far away. I mean, we could care less about what, $15,000 in total? And it's just another negative way they can use money and positions of power. I even called one of the top 5 nationwide banks in the United States, and they say you don't need a social security number. But either way, it is not happening. They tried to corner my husband behind my back, but he wouldn't budge either. So my anger towards them just continues to rise. They make snide comments at every holiday so far, and my baby's birthday is coming up soon too, but I don't care. I mean, my idiot brother dolled out his kid's social security number, all without any consent from his wife or even thinking about it. So now it makes my parents say that I don't trust them, but of course I don't. Because in my opinion, someone with good intentions wouldn't get this angry, because I blatantly don't trust my parents in the slightest. Yeah, it really seems like your parents are trying to find new victims of some kind of fraudulent situation, which is exactly what you found yourself in when you were a minor. Like, that is honestly awful, and there is no good excuse for that. Like, if they're willing to put your name under the account for utilities even though you're a minor, then who's to say they wouldn't do that to their grandkids? Like, they've done it once, why wouldn't they do it again? That is so dishonest and just really creepy. There's no reason for that behavior, and there's no reason for them to have your kid's social security number, because based on their history, they're only gonna ruin your kid's life, and that is absolutely not okay. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled coworker claims that I'm the reason she buys coffee every single day, and that she's wasting all this money simply because I won't share the creamer I bought for myself. But it's all so nonsensical, as our work literally offers free coffee and creamer downstairs. And I'm still honestly speechless by my coworker's incredible laziness. Here's what happened. First of all, let me just say that I am honored that I have this much power in my coworker's life. I had no idea, and apparently I'm using this power for evil instead of good. For some context, my coworker is extremely behind on bills because her college-age daughter uses her credit card, and she racked up thousands of dollars in debt. In food-related charges in one semester, she had over $5,000 on the credit card. Now, my coworker still gave her the card the next semester because she couldn't have the daughter walk in the dining hall and have food that she didn't like, even though the food was already paid for, mind you. And the kid also didn't want to cook in the kitchen, even though she paid for a weekly grocery delivery from the grocery store. But you know, I'm not a parent, so maybe I just don't understand. Anyways, my coworker is looking to save money. I grab a coffee daily from the lunchroom. Basically, it's hot water that I add my own stuff, which is like coffee and some creamer. And I guess herein lies the problem. My coworker keeps forgetting to buy the coffee that she needs. Now, for the record, I'm not sharing my expensive coffee with her. That is honestly where I draw the line. And when I say forget, I mean that she runs to the grocery store almost daily because they need a very specific cereal that day, especially when they're running out of that in their house, instead of just eating something else that they have in the house. And again, let me emphasize, I'm not a mother, so maybe this is normal. But if I tried that with my mother, I would not have had any cereal to eat. So instead of Amazoning like a normal human being, she just needs to grab some Dunkin' Donuts every single morning. Now, here comes the part where apparently I'm costing her money. We have free coffee downstairs and free cream. But again, it's downstairs. This coworker walks by it every single morning. And when she does remember to bring coffee, she forgets to grab the cream. And then she messages me saying she's too tired and doesn't know what she's gonna do. But here's the thing. I have cream at my desk. My cream is not the same as the one downstairs. Do you see where this is going? I buy my cream in flavors in the single serve variety. And I do this in large quantities because I'm horrible at remembering what I bought. So I just stock up to save me some time. So theoretically, I might have some extra. But as you can guess, the guilt-tripping text messages came daily for weeks, but never outright asking me me that she wants some. I would always say, hey, just grab some downstairs. She told me that because she doesn't have cream, she now just stops at Dunkin' Donuts every morning. So, to review, because I won't share my $50 worth of cream, she's now telling me that she goes to Dunkin' Donuts every morning, which apparently she can't afford. And honestly, with all things considered, I can definitely see exactly where the daughter gets it from. Wow, your coworker is not only incredibly stupid, but also incredibly lazy. If she wanted to have the cream with the coffee, she would go downstairs, get it, and then bring it back to her desk. But I guess that's like too hard for her or something like that. Like seriously, what's going on here? Like this is not your fault or your problem in the slightest, and this definitely sounds like she's just being lazy and trying to guilt trip you into giving up your cream. And I'm so glad you didn't cave into these weird demands. Like I guarantee you the second you give that up even once, she's gonna ask for that every single time at work. I guarantee you that's just gonna be the tip of the iceberg, and then suddenly she's gonna be taking it from you without even asking. This is her way of like testing the limits, if you will. So good for you for sticking to it and saying no, because if given the chance based on what you've described, I'm convinced that your lazy coworker would take all of your creamer and use it all for herself. A group of entitled customers refuse to leave when I tell them that we're closing, as they beg and plead to stay just a little bit longer for their stupid games. And I'm honestly so annoyed having to deal with customers that act like this. Here's what happened. For reference, this happened last night. I work security at a bar, and I mainly check IDs and make sure the place doesn't get too rowdy, which thankfully doesn't really happen. Last night, a group of mostly British people came in at around 11 or 11:30, and they stayed until we closed at about 2 o'clock. We have a ping pong table, and the group spent most of their time playing on it. The night continued as normal. I closed the back areas of the bar at 1 and announced last call 30 minutes later. 2 o'clock in the morning rolls around, and the first issue comes up. I turn off the music in the middle of a song, which the group expressed disappointment in, even though it was a Nickelback song. I say to them, hey guys, it's 2 o'clock. We are officially closed. It's time to head to the exit. One of the men from the group said, can we have some photos in the photo booth first? So I look at them and I say, okay, fine. I let them take their photos, and I do a couple of other jobs during this time. Our photo booth is slow, so it takes them a couple of minutes to take all the photos. As this is going on, the two guys are still playing ping pong. I finished the brief task that I was doing, and I see that the group was finished taking their photos, and the ping pong guys are still playing. At this point, it's about 2:05 in the morning. I say to them, okay guys, we're officially closed. One of the guys said, okay, but just 2 more points. But I said to them, no, 1 more point. I let them do a game point, reminding them that this is the last point of the night, with the guy asking for more time eventually getting the point. I look at them again and I say, all right, we are closed. It's time to head out. But then they ask for 2 more minutes. I look at them and I say, I already gave you 5 minutes. But they come back at me and say, oh, come on, just 2 more minutes. So I said, well, I already gave you a game point. But that's when they started whining. They said, come on, man, just 2 more minutes. I said to them, I already gave you 5 minutes. We are closed. He continues to plead his case, but I continue to deny him. The group he's with are keeping out of it, but they're basically all ready to go. The guy says to me, how will you be able to sleep tonight knowing you kept a game from finishing? I looked at him and said, I'm gonna sleep like a baby. He then looked at me and said, yeah, you look like a baby. Now, at this point, I'm pretty much done with this guy. I act like I didn't hear him, and I just simply take the paddles and the ball away. And eventually, the group leaves. Someone from the main group says, I'm sorry about that. He's from a different country. I say to them, it's all right. It's just time to go. Please, have a good night. Now, I do legitimately wish them a good night before locking the door, but it is sometimes incredibly annoying dealing with customers who act like this. I relate to this story so much because seriously, there is nothing more annoying than having customers sit around right when you are literally trying to close the store up. But I can say that if you ever give customers an inch, they will absolutely take a mile. Like they got you twice, once for the photo booth and once for the ping pong table. And honestly, that's like 2 more times than I would ever allow anybody to stick around. So hopefully next time you can just give them the boot, because in my opinion, when someone says it's closing time, that means it's your turn to get up and leave. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not inviting my friend's ex-girlfriend to my party, all because they had a really messy breakup? Because right now, my friend is incredibly angry with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I recently organized a small gathering at my place, and I intentionally did not invite my friend's ex-girlfriend. They broke up on bad terms, and I didn't want to create any awkwardness or discomfort for my friend. However, when my friend found out, they accused me of being unfair and excluding their ex for no reason. Now, here's some additional context. This messy breakup happened about 6 months ago. There were allegations of cheating and dishonesty from both sides, which resulted resulted in a lot of hurt feelings and resentment. Since the breakup, my friend has been trying to heal and move on from the experience. They've been avoiding any conflict or interaction with their ex to help facilitate this process. When I decided to throw a party, I carefully curated the guest list to include people who get along well and have some kind of positive energy. So, because of that, I deliberately left out my friend's ex because I didn't want to disrupt the harmony of the event. I thought it would be insensitive to invite someone who would potentially cause emotional distress to my friend, especially considering the recent breakup. However, my friend didn't see it that way. They accused me of taking sides and punishing their ex unfairly. They argue that their ex is also part of our friend group and should have been included in the invitation. They accused me of prioritizing their feelings over those of their ex, and they felt betrayed by my decision. To make matters worse, unbeknownst to me, another friend decided to invite my friend's ex without consulting me. When the ex showed up at the party, tensions immediately rose. My friend became visibly upset and confronted me about why I didn't inform them about the change in the guest list. The atmosphere became tense and the party quickly lost its lively vibe. But things took a dramatic turn when, in the heat of an argument between my friend and their ex, the ex-girlfriend threatened to call the police on the party for allegedly having a noise violation. The situation escalated quickly, and I found myself torn between trying to diffuse the tension and feeling like my intentions to create a comfortable environment for my friend had just completely backfired. So now I'm left wondering if I made the right decision by excluding my friend's ex from the party. Was I too biased in favor of my friend? Should I have considered inviting their ex despite the messy history? Or was I justified in trying to prioritize my friend's comfort by excluding their ex? I really need to know if I'm the jerk in this situation, especially how things spiraled out of control when the ex unexpectedly showed up and caused all this chaos. What should I do? You are definitely not the jerk, and in my opinion, I don't think you should have invited any of them. Your friend, your ex, literally all of them suck. How can your friend possibly be heartbroken over his ex trying to cheat on him, but then turn around and be like, oh my god, why didn't you invite her? You're only prioritizing my feelings. And then on top of all of that garbage, get upset with you when they finally do show up. So like, which one is it? Are you comfortable with them being there or are you not? Because the friend you're talking about is literally playing both sides of the fence. They're both upset that you didn't invite them while also being upset that they showed up. Like seriously, what does this guy want? Like I wonder if there were any signs before this party that kind of showed that, hey, maybe they shouldn't show up to this party in the first place. Because their behavior is literally insane. I get that they just broke up and clearly it's very messy. But for them to act like that at your party, that in my opinion is completely inappropriate. So no, of course not. You are definitely not the jerk. You were literally just trying to help out your friend and try to like perfectly curate this party so that anyone who shows up is going to be a positive and good influence. And the fact that all of this went off the rails literally is not your fault, but rather it falls on your friend and his ex-girlfriend. Am I the jerk for getting upset with my boyfriend after he gave a lady a ride home while my kid was in the car? Because right now I feel really guilty, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So yesterday after church, we stopped at a gas station less than 1 minute away from where we live. It's me, my boyfriend who is driving, and my 14-month-old in a car. I was on my phone when suddenly my boyfriend was opening the backseat door to let a lady who was maybe in her 60s inside the car with her grocery bags. Apparently she was asking people for a ride home and he accepted. On the way there, they were chatting and he even pointed out where we live, which really concerned me. She lived quite far away from the gas station and I was surprised that she said she walked there, though it wasn't more than 5 minutes away. I was really upset that my boyfriend let a stranger into our backseat with our daughter. The lady was very nice, but these days you have no idea if people are carrying a weapon on them. I told him that I wish he could have at least let her sit up front just so she wasn't near our toddler, or dropped us off at home first and then went back to get her. That would have taken what, like 3 minutes for him to do? Well, I brought this all up to my boyfriend and he got really mad at me for not being more Christ-like and called me an awful person who lives in fear. I'm honestly quite the opposite and usually quite trusting of people, but just not when it comes to my daughter. She's too young to talk or understand anything. Also, I was so mad at him for what felt like weaponizing religion against me for my concern. I'm feeling really guilty now because it's not like I don't think that it was sweet that he wanted to give her a ride home, but I just had a mom instinct to protect my daughter. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your concerns are completely valid. You have a kid in the car and you're letting a strange person into the car with the kid in the back seat? Like seriously, what's going on here? This is not the time to be charitable around someone that you do not not know? I mean, he didn't even talk to you first and be like, oh, can we give that lady a ride? As if you're not in the car with him as well. So in that regards, I think you're completely right. That lady could have gone nuts and pulled out a weapon of some kind. She could have been a threat waiting to happen. Like in today's day and age, there's no way I'm gonna take that chance, especially with a kid in the car. Now, if it was just the two of you and you were both like on your way home and you gave this lady a ride to wherever she needed to go, then sure, there might be a case to say, oh yeah, let's just give her a ride real quick. But to do that without talking with you first about that, especially with a kid in the car, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. I personally think that's pretty obvious, but maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comment section. Now, when it comes to him weaponizing his religion, in my opinion, that is incredibly hypocritical. He literally is just trying to guilt trip you and make you feel bad for not agreeing to something that you never were informed about. Like the way he's acting right now by weaponizing religion, I'm pretty sure goes against what his religion teaches. So I think it's hilarious how he's like, oh, you need to be more Christ-like. But you could easily spin that around and be like, yeah, guess what? So do you. So no, I don't think you're in the wrong at all. I think your boyfriend is completely out of line for the way he acted. And if anything, I think he is completely delusional for letting that lady in the car. Because not only do you not know who this lady is, but also things could have gone really bad really fast, and there's not much any of you could have done to try and stop it. An entitled customer complains about my service towards her, despite the fact that I wasn't even the person that served her at our bar. And I'm honestly just so sick of dealing with people like this, as I literally did nothing wrong for this entitled jerk. Here's what happened. So I worked this morning and we had a huge pop. Unfortunately, one of the bartenders hates stocking the bar when he closes, so when I work after him, I find myself having to stock for both his shift and mine to play catch up. Anyways, today wasn't different, but because of the rush, I couldn't stock as much as I'd like to, so I wouldn't have to stock 2 shifts worth of alcohol after my shift for the next person. When the rush was over, I had only one lady at my bar. I brought her a water and I asked her if she wanted anything to drink. She said no, and she asked about a salad. I answered her and said I'll give her a few minutes to look over the menu and that she can let me know if she has any questions. She said okay, so I ran downstairs to get a case of ginger beer. I was gone maybe 3 minutes max. I mean, everything in the basement is scattered around. When I come back, she's moved to a table, so I now have an empty bar. So I think to myself, whatever. I put all the stuff away, I cut up some fruit, and since she moved to a table, a server would take over her order since she didn't get anything from me. So then she comes up to the bar to pay, which is weird because servers do payments at the table, but I figured she might be in a rush, so I ran her card for the server. We had a pleasant interaction, and because her server is missing in action, I asked if there was anything else I could do for her, and after she said no, she just left. 2 minutes later, the host answers the phone asking for a manager. I was the shift lead, so I ended up having to take the call. The person on the phone says, I need a manager, and I said, well, I am the manager on duty as our general manager isn't here. She says to me, is this that idiot behind the bar? I said to her, I guess it is. She then said, I need to speak with someone that's not you. I said to her, okay, I can take your name and number and leave a message for the general manager to call you, but I do want to let you know that it wouldn't be until Tuesday. She then said to me, well, when can I call them? And once again, I said Tuesday would be the earliest. So I get her name and number and then I get hung up on. Now, I guess I just really don't understand. I didn't even serve her besides bring her some water. She moved to a table and she was served by a server who she also stiffed. I texted my general manager about it and I asked her to check the camera footage to see when I went downstairs and when I came back up. And it was literally 3 minutes and 27 seconds. That is all the time I spent in the basement grabbing things to bring it back up. Like, am I crazy? I obviously wasn't trying to ruin this lady's whole day, but I guess according to her, I definitely did. Wow, that is honestly really weird to me. It doesn't make any sense why she would complain about you. You literally sat her down and said, oh, I'll be back. And then you were gone for less than 5 minutes. Like, that is no reason for anybody to be like, wow, I'm gonna complain about you. I need to talk to the general manager. Like, you didn't do anything. You were being completely reasonable with this lady. So for her to be like, is this that jerk behind the bar? And by the way, she didn't say jerk. She said a swear word instead of jerk. And in my opinion, that's right when I would have hung up the phone, but that's just me. So seriously, the fact that she would complain about you just doesn't make any sense. Because you were more than accommodating for this lady, and any complaint she could possibly muster up, in my opinion, is completely ridiculous. A crazy entitled Karen goes digging through my trash cans in my garage as she claims that I'm the reason there's so many chicken bones out on the street, claiming that if I don't clean up my mess next to my trash cans, then she's gonna call the police and try to have me arrested. And I've honestly never been more confused by anybody in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I live in a nice suburban neighborhood, and I haven't had any issues with anyone until last Thursday. Trash day is on Thursday, and I had my trash cans out the night before. The trash got picked up, and I went out that morning to put them back in my garage. Around an hour later, maybe like 9:30 in the morning, I heard a bunch of noise from my garage. Now mind you, my garage door was open. When I went to see what was going on, I'm greeted by some random lady in my garage messing with my garbage cans. Now before I could even say anything, she immediately turns to me and starts to scream,
"You need to stop throwing your chicken bones out. The dogs are going to get sick from your trash."
Now for reference, I haven't eaten chicken with a bone in it for months, and I certainly didn't have chicken bones or any bones in my trash can. So I ask her why she's in my garage, and that I have no clue what she's talking about, and that I don't have any chicken bones in my trash. But she continues by saying,
"I saw half a dozen chicken bones on the road by your trash cans. You're lying, and I will call the police if you don't stop picking up your trash."
Now at this point, I am reaching my limit. Plus, I'm still hungover because I didn't have to work that day. I told her to get off my property, and that if I caught her going through my stuff again, that I would be the one calling the cops on her. She eventually walked off, screeching about the dogs and stupid lazy millennials. But thankfully, I haven't seen her around my house ever since, but I know she lives right down the street. And I honestly just can't believe that something this stereotypical and insane seriously happened to me. Man, talk about the one time you don't close your garage door, you find some crazy Karen digging through your trash looking for chicken bones. Like, what in the world was she doing? She was acting like this was some dire emergency, digging through your garbage to try and find something that clearly wasn't there. And even like hypothetically speaking, even if there were chicken bones right next to your trash cans, how does that give her any right to step in and be like, okay, I'm gonna go through your garage? And I'm also kind of convinced that she didn't even know which house to go to. Like, she most likely saw the first garage door that was open and thought to herself, yes, now's my chance. I'm gonna finally crack this case for these chicken bones. That is seriously some crazy behavior, and I really think that lady must have been insane, because no rational human being is gonna trespass on your property and then start digging through your trash in some kind of like weird desperate attempt to prove you wrong. That is some crazy talk behavior, and hopefully you don't have to deal with this entitled Karen ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that his gift to his son won't be received the way that he wants it to be? Because right now there is a lot of tension in the house, and at this point I'm not really sure what to do. So my husband and I have been married for 15 years. We have 2 children together, ages 13 and 11. My husband has 2 children from another marriage to his late wife, so my stepkids are 24 and 23, with my stepson being the oldest and my stepdaughter being the youngest. When my husband first found out he was going to be a father, he started a scrapbook for his son and had photos and written memories and little memories added in that he continued throughout the next 25 years. And he did the same thing for his 3 other children as well. This book documents everything, from fun memories to sweet and heartfelt ones, to even some more heartbreaking ones like the passing of his late wife. Well, my husband decided the scrapbook will be his gift to his son for his 25th birthday. He included all sorts of family photos and moments in this scrapbook, including since we got married and had our kids. But both of my stepkids have been pretty clear that they do not have a fondness for me or for their half-siblings, and they have no trace of us in their homes. When he moved out, he left behind photos he was in that included me and my children. And when my husband mentioned he had forgotten some photos, my stepson replied that he had double and triple checked and he had everything he wanted. My stepdaughter was a little bit more clear, and she actually tossed any unwanted photos in the trash before she moved out. On their social media, they post family photos, but funnily enough, they never have me or their half-siblings included. They never even acknowledge us online at all. My stepkids both also said they'd like it if their dad didn't bring us up, because if he's visiting, they'd like to see him and only him. My husband, by the way, just brushed off that comment and said that he could stop by on his own too, but they would never see the rest of us if we didn't visit. Now, I'll say right here that I was not an affair partner, nor did I ever expect the kids to forget about their mom or replace her with me, nor did I expect my husband to. I did not push myself on them. The kids never spoke out against us getting married or brought any issues to me or my husband about us. And trust me, we did talk to them. It really only became apparent after they became adults. So when my husband brought up that he was going to gift the scrapbook to his son for his 25th birthday, I straight up asked him if he was sure, and he was like, why not? His son would love it, and he couldn't wait for us to all go through it together. But I told him that I wasn't so sure he'd love all of it, especially given his refusal to have photos of me or the kids in his home. He told me that it's not like he could just remove them, but I just didn't comment on that. He then asked me what I expected, and then asked if I thought he'd rip those pages out or something. And you know what? I said yes. He asked why I was being so negative, and I told him that given the last several years, I really don't think the gift would be received the way he's expecting. Well, my husband told me my negativity was too much, and he was unhappy with me thinking of his kids like that. So truly, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because seriously, I'm not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think if anything, your husband is completely out of his mind, and I think he's really in denial. Like, this guy is willfully ignoring basically all the evidence in front of him that pretty much spell out that his kids definitely do not like the original poster. They very clearly have animosity towards her and the other kids that are being raised in the house. Now, I've never experienced my mom passing away and having another woman step into the family and taking on the role as like a stepmom. I don't know what it's like to go through that, so honestly, I can't comment on that. But I can say that I've seen other people go through a similar situation, and they've been able to have a fantastic relationship with their step-parent. So with all things considered, especially with the fact that the original poster was not pushy on these kids, and they really didn't do anything perceivably wrong to the kids, in my opinion, there's really no good reason for anyone to be acting this way. Especially towards the kids, mind you, like they didn't do anything wrong. Like, I can never understand taking it out on children all because you're upset that your dad remarried. So no, you are not the jerk. Your husband is denying all these issues that are going on, and he's just completely ignoring all the comments that his kids are making, because clearly they're causing a lot of animosity. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like this is the original poster's fault in the slightest. My entitled boss blames me for her forgetfulness and tries to embarrass me in front of everybody by shifting the blame of her screw-up onto my shoulders. So I decided to maliciously comply by annoying her non-stop in the funniest way I possibly could think of. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm a traveling healthcare worker, and my current contract is for 2 hospitals about 30 minutes away from each other. When I applied for this contract, there was no mention on the posting of working at 2 hospitals, but the manager mentioned during my interview that I would occasionally have to work at a sister hospital as well. I agreed that was fine, and when setting up my living arrangements, I made sure I was closest to the hospital I was told I would be at most of the time. Well, my start date rolls around, and she's just completely flipped things. I'm now at the sister hospital the vast majority of the time, and almost never at the hospital that is close to me. To make things even better, I don't have badge access or computer access at the sister hospital, and construction has closed down the road that I was initially taking to get to the sister hospital, making my commute over an hour long each way, which is more than triple what it would be at the closer hospital. Now, I've brought up these concerns via text message, email, over the phone, and in person, and it's gone straight to my manager multiple times, and she's assured me that she will fix the technological problems as soon as possible, but then I never hear back from her. When the next schedule came out, she has me exclusively at the sister hospital, so I email her to ask her if she could adjust it because of the above troubles, but she just ignores my email until she comes into my work to tell me that there's no schedule changes that will be happening. She then starts chewing me out in front of multiple coworkers for never coming to her about my technological problems. Well, since then, I have started texting her every single day as soon as she gets to work, asking if she has any updates on my access problems. And every single day, she texts me an excuse as to why she forgot and why it hasn't been solved yet. Every time I see her in person, I make sure to bring up that she told me that she would be fixing things. And then I ask if she has an update in front of as many coworkers as possible. And I do this so she can say in front of everybody that she's apparently been extremely forgetful. Now, with all things considered, it honestly feels good to annoy her every single day with daily text messages, as well as constantly pestering her after she tried to embarrass me in front of my coworkers. I think the part of this story that really upsets me the most is the fact that the manager tried to embarrass the original poster in front of all of their coworkers, especially because this was literally all of the manager's fault. Like, is she seriously trying to sit there and be like, wow, this is your fault for not communicating this? But like, you've been texting and emailing and talking to her constantly about it. So for her to turn around and try to blame this on you is insane to me. I mean, you even set up your living arrangements so you would be close to the hospital that she said you would be close to. So honestly, I think the way you're going about this is truly the best way to handle it, because the way you're being treated is completely unprofessional, and you do do not deserve that in the slightest. An entitled Karen moving into my house demands that I let her move in early or else she's not going to show up to the closing date. And after dealing with her trespassing on my property as well as vandalizing my property, all before she even legally owned the house I was trying to sell to her, I finally hit my wit's end, telling her straight up that if she didn't show up to the closing date for the house, then I would be suing her in court. Here's what happened. So when I married my first husband, we bought a house built in 1960 with its original aluminum shingled roof, and the roof did look bad, but it was in good shape as long as you kept the leaves off of it. After we got divorced, I kept the house and I lived there until I moved in with my now husband. I kept the house empty for a couple of years, checking on it regularly just in case things didn't work out. During that time, I didn't clean the roof off, and the leaves built up and caused a leak. Now this was immediately repaired, and it convinced me that it was time to sell the house. I listed the house for just what I needed to pay off the mortgage, and then I waited. In 3 months' time, I didn't get any serious offers, just investors that tried to lowball me. My realtor was getting really restless when I finally got an offer that wasn't terrible. We started negotiations, and she immediately made it known that she was in the Air Force Reserves, and she was retired. Now, my parents were in the Air Force, so this isn't something that I really care about. She was not going to get any special treatment just because of that. Now, for reference, I'm used to people that use their military experience just to get stuff. She was getting a VA loan, and at the time, that meant stricter requirements for inspections. She kept trying to get me to lower the price, and finally used the roof leak against me. She claimed the roof needed to be replaced, and found a roofer who was willing to back her up on it. And at this point, it kind of forced my hand. So I agreed to pay half the expected replacement cost, but she didn't want that paid to the roofer. Instead, she wanted it paid directly to her. It was clearly an excuse to get the price lowered, and it really pissed me off, but there wasn't much I could do because I really needed to sell the house. We finally agreed, and the house was put under contract, with a closing date set for a month away. The inspection started, and after the first one, she asked for a few minor things to be fixed, which I did. Then we had the second inspection for the VA loan, and this was about 3 weeks away from closing. I went by the house the day after, and as I pulled into the driveway, I found a package addressed to her in the mailbox, and a metal shelf and outdoor swing sitting in the driveway. Now, I'm not happy, but I'm more confused than anything. I then went into the house. The house is a tri-level, with the basement being just 5 steps from the kitchen. The basement had been redone to be a primary bedroom prior to me buying it, but I only used it as a family and media room. Well, the first thing I noticed was the basement. She had completely rearranged it. There was IKEA wardrobe and closet things that she had pulled from the wall and ripped apart everything and just started flipping them around. She had moved a mattress from the upstairs into the basement, and the floor was damaged while they moved things around. I mean, the furniture was just completely rearranged. Then I went upstairs to the bedrooms, and I found cans of paint and packages of curtains in all the upstairs rooms. Like, these are not my things, and I'm very angry. I mean, the house isn't even hers yet. She shouldn't be leaving things there or rearranging anything. I called my realtor, who called her realtor, who then got in contact with her. It was relayed to me that she had dropped some things off outside, but she insisted that she was never in the house. But it's an obvious lie to cover the trespassing. I then went outside and found a circular burn in the grass, after which I found a burned paint stick inside the house. So there you go, we now have vandalism on the board. In an effort to appease me, the buyer agreed to move up the closing date. It was supposed to be within a week, but that ended up not happening, and we only closed 3 days early on a Monday instead of Wednesday. Other than the delays, nothing else happens until just before the closing date. On the Friday before, my realtor called me and said the buyer wanted to move in over that weekend instead of waiting for closing because she's military and she doesn't get many days off and wouldn't be able to move in until that next weekend. But you know what? That wasn't my problem. So I immediately said no, that's not happening. The realtor called again later, saying that she's really pushing the military thing. She really wants to move in early and would be willing to do a lease agreement. And I again say absolutely not. Well, I get another call saying that the buyer was now calling anyone and everyone involved with the sale, namely the loan officers, insurance company, the realtor broker, the commanding officers, just to try and find anyone that can force me to let her move in early. And now she was saying that she was not going to show up for closing if I did not let her move in. I asked what would happen if she didn't show up and was told that she would still have to pay the commissions for both realtors, and since there was a contract, I could take her to court and force her to complete the sale. So I again said that she was not moving in early, and I told my realtor that she could convey anything of what I was about to say to the buyer. I told her that I didn't press charges for trespassing and vandalism because of the contract, but if she fails to show up for closing, I would not only pursue all my legal rights regarding the contract, but I would also be contacting police about pressing criminal charges. Now, I don't know how much of that was relayed, but I got a call a few minutes later that she would be showing up to closing, but she wanted to sign her papers in a separate room. The closing went off without a hitch, and I'm honestly so glad to be rid of that house. Wow, the buyer of your house was being incredibly obnoxious. Like seriously, the way they were acting was just so insane. They were trespassing in your house before you even moved into it, and they straight up vandalized the walls and the floor all before they even moved in. Like if I was in your shoes, I would be furious as well. This kind of behavior is just not okay. So honestly, good for you for putting this lady in her place, because the way she was acting was absolutely ridiculous. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to never volunteer me to help out her family ever again after she bails on helping her brother and his girlfriend move to another apartment, leaving me to do it all by myself for the next 8 hours? Because right now I'm very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. My wife and I have been married for 8 years, and we have a 4-year-old son together. My wife's younger brother, who we will call Joe, as well as his girlfriend, are moving into an apartment together at the beginning of June. But his girlfriend's lease is up at the end of April, so she needed to move out of her place. But Joe currently lives in a studio apartment, so he doesn't have room for all her stuff. So they were going to move all of his girlfriend's stuff into a storage unit for a month, all the way up until they can get a new place together. A little over a month ago, Joe had asked my wife if we would be able to help move his girlfriend's stuff, and she agreed. My mother-in-law was supposed to watch our son so we both could help out, but she got sick and had to cancel. My wife suggested trying to get a babysitter for that day, but I didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars on a babysitter to help somebody move. I mean, that's just dumb and it doesn't make any sense. And bringing a 4-year-old with us would not be helpful to anyone. Well, this turned into an argument between us, because she said I should help them move while she watches our son, since I'm stronger than she is, and I know how to drive our truck with a trailer. Then, on Saturday, which is the morning of the move, my wife told me that a friend of hers got sweet tickets through work to a hockey game for that day, and they had invited them. And yes, these are sweet tickets to a playoff hockey game. She said she would be bringing our son, since her friend was bringing her kids too. So this is great. Not only do I get stuck helping somebody else move, but my wife and son get to go have an amazing experience together that I'm just gonna miss out on. And yes, this was my son's first major sporting event, and I was going to be completely missing it. And wouldn't you know it, but Joe never got a U-Haul, and his girlfriend was not even close to being packed up and ready when I got there. I spent 7 to 8 hours and multiple trips back and forth helping them move. All the while, my wife is sending pictures to our family group chat of how much fun they're having at this hockey game. When everyone was home that night, my wife was surprised that I wasn't in a good mood. She said that I acted like I barely cared when our son was telling us about the hockey game and how much fun it was. So I asked her if she was really confused about why I was upset, and she told me to go ahead and tell her. So I just started railing off all the reasons why I was so upset. She volunteered me to help. She got to spend the day doing something very special with our son that I missed out on. Her brother and his girlfriend were not prepared, and I had spent the entire day doing manual labor. I ended my little rant by telling her that she is never going to volunteer me to help her family ever again. Well, she told me I was overreacting and that I can't hold it against her that her friend invited them to the game. She also said that I'm not being fair by blaming Joe and his girlfriend. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm still very upset and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. If I was in your shoes and this all happened to me, I would be super upset. Here's the thing, in my opinion, there's one main rule of helping somebody move. You need to have all your stuff ready when people arrive to help out. If I roll up at your house and you don't have a U-Haul and your girlfriend and you have not packed anything, I might just turn around and leave. Like, that is so disrespectful of this guy's time, and it is completely unfair to put him in that kind of position. And worst of all, this wasn't like a 1 to 2 hour kind of thing. You were literally there for 8 hours. Like, after hour 5, I would have lost my mind and been like, I'm sorry, you gotta find someone else to help out. Because I've been in that position where you're like, okay, let's get this stuff moved, and the people you're trying to help don't have anything together, they have not got anything planned out, and then they just sit there and say, okay, we gotta get this done. Like, that sounds like a nightmare, and I seriously would not be okay with that either. But also, more to the point, the fact that your wife is like, don't hold this against me, what are you doing? My friend invited us to that, you can't be mad about that. Like, no, I'm sorry, I absolutely can be angry about that. And it's not even about her friend friend inviting them to the game. You got volunteered to do something against your will and was basically strong-armed into doing this stupid favor. Meanwhile, she's off having a great time. Like, talk about getting baited into volunteering for something just for the person who volunteered you to back out and then go to a hockey game. Like, seriously, how obnoxious is that? And while you're sweating over moving these stupid boxes, your wife is sending like a stream of pictures of her and her son having a great time at this hockey game. Like, that would get on my last nerve so quickly. It's like she had this blatant disregard for your time and energy. So seriously, you are definitely not the jerk. I think everybody else involved is very inconsiderate, and if I was in your shoes, I would be very upset as well. My boyfriend is going on a week-long vacation with his female best friend, and he's telling me that while he's there for 8 days, he and her are going to be sharing the same bed. And right now, I am so distraught over this information, because right now, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months. During this time, we haven't really had any major conflicts, and he hasn't given me any reason not to trust him, besides having a lot of straight female friends. I really wish this didn't bother me at all, but it does a little, especially because I've never been able to maintain any friendships with straight men due to them eventually wanting something more. About a month ago, we were discussing plans for his birthday, which is next week, and it's right then that he let me know that he would be out of town then, because he would be vacationing with his best friend, who is this girl he was very close with in high school. And mind you, at this point, he had never mentioned her before. She lives in an island in the Mediterranean, and he is going to visit her for about 8 days. He showed me photos of her, and she is absolutely gorgeous. I'm generally fairly confident in my looks, but I'd be delusional to pretend that she isn't objectively more attractive than me. So, not wanting to seem controlling, I said, cool, that's totally fine. But I asked him for one thing. He cannot share a bed with her. Well, he acted like he didn't understand why this would be an issue. He told me that if it was me, he would have no problem with me sharing a bed with a straight male friend. I told him that while it's easy for him to say that, being that I have no straight male friends, I highly doubt he would be 100% cool with me sharing a bed with some 6'2" male model looking guy for a week. But even though I made that point, he still disagreed. We went back and forth some more, and I thought we came to a consensus that while he didn't understand my concern, he respected me enough to not sleep with another woman. But I was completely wrong. I was going to ask him if he had any other romantic or scandalous history with said friend, if you know what I mean. And before I even finished the question, he said to me, I know what you're gonna ask. I don't know if we're gonna be sharing a bed, but probably. So, knowing how he likes to avoid confrontation, this likely means yes. Anyways, he did at least tell me that they have no history other than being platonic, which I guess will somewhat put me at ease. And right now, I honestly just don't know what to think. I don't even know if it's worth bringing up this topic again with him, because I don't think there's anything he could tell me to make me believe he won't cheat on me. He's leaving in 2 days, and right now, I'm seriously at such a loss, and I just don't know what to do. Okay, this is insane to me. This guy seriously is gonna go to the Mediterranean and spend time with his hot friend and be like, yeah, we're gonna share the same bed together. Like, what is he doing? Does he not realize he has a girlfriend right now? Like, he really should know that that is not appropriate behavior for like a best friend. Like, I have best friends who are female as well, and I could not even imagine sharing the same bed as them. That is insane behavior to me. Like, that is a massive red flag, and that is not a good look. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be making a much bigger fuss about this. Him spending 8 days in the same bed with this hot lady from the Mediterranean, that in my opinion is so uncalled for, and there is absolutely no reason for you to put up with that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for announcing my pregnancy at my best friend's wedding, which I only did in the first place because she announced her engagement at my wedding? Because right now, my friend is incredibly angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 24-year-old female, and I recently discovered that I'm expecting my first child. My best friend, who we will call Laura, is 23 years old, and I've shared every significant life moment with her since we met in college. I got married 2 years ago to Laura's brother, and at my wedding, Laura announced her engagement to my brother during the reception. I was genuinely thrilled for her. I've always thought of Laura as a sister, and now we truly were, and I really didn't mind at all that she shared her big news. It felt like our joys were intertwined. Well, last weekend was Laura and my brother's wedding, and it seemed like a beautiful circle of life moment. Throughout the wedding and reception, a few close friends began noticing that I wasn't drinking, and they all started whispering guesses about my pregnancy. It felt like my news was already halfway out there, there. So after the speeches, I made a toast. I expressed my deep happiness for Laura and my brother. Then, feeling the moment was right and following the precedent that she had set at my wedding, I decided to share that I was expecting. And after a handful of hugs and congratulations, I feel like the celebration shifted back to Laura and my brother. Now, I thought Laura would be excited, but instead, she seemed upset. She pulled me aside after the toast and expressed that she felt that I had chosen her special day to make a personal announcement, just to overshadow her celebration. Now, this reaction stunned me, especially since she made a similar announcement at my wedding, which is a moment that I embrace wholeheartedly. I was happy to share in her happiness. Laura has been distant ever since, and even my brother hasn't spoken to me since the wedding, and I'm now basically left questioning my decision. I thought that since I didn't mind sharing my special day, she would feel the same way. Our mutual friends, on the other hand, are divided. Some think that it was a sweet continuation of sharing life's milestones, while others, alongside with Laura, feel that the timing was completely inappropriate. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. The way that Laura's reacting to this, in my opinion, is super hypocritical. If somebody announced their engagement at my wedding, I think I would lose my mind. Like, that is so inappropriate, it's not even funny. She literally took away from your big day, and she made some big announcement that shifted the focus over to her. So how on earth could she even be upset that you did the same thing? Like, she literally did this herself at your wedding. Like, seriously, what is going on? If she didn't want it to happen at her wedding, then she shouldn't have done it at your wedding. That's my honest opinion on that matter, and seriously, it's her own fault that this happened. Like, it really seems like you two are supposedly sisters only when it's convenient to Laura, especially on a big day like somebody's wedding. Like, I don't care how close I am with somebody, I'm not about to make some kind of like major announcement at anybody's wedding for any reason. That is messed up, and it takes away from the people getting married. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think what she did in the first place was very rude, and if she doesn't like it, then she definitely should not have done that to you in the first place. My job denied me the flexibility they promised with my schedule while I was going for my master's program. So I decided to maliciously comply by calling out of work every single morning just to spite my managers. Here's what happened. So I was in a supervisory role as a charge nurse, and I had worked in this position for about 3 years. I had great reviews and earned consistent raises and performance bonuses. I approached my managers and requested that they agree to a flexible schedule if I worked on my master's degree. I wasn't asking for time off, I just wanted them to adjust my schedule when it came time for my practical rotations. Now, they agreed, as they wouldn't be losing any productivity and would be gaining a nurse practitioner for the system. After about a year, I started the program, and it became apparent I was going to need to divorce my wife. We had been married for many years, and it was quite a blow. I called the Employee Assistance Program and got some therapy that was very helpful. My managers also suggested that I apply for FMLA leave due to their concern for my mental health. And for that, I was very grateful. I had been working for this system for a number of years and had many hours of paid time off saved up. But I figured the FMLA leave would be a smart thing to be approved for, just in case court times were scheduled when I was working. Eventually, I was approved for up to 40 hours per week for a year. Well, fast forward, and about a year into my master's program, it became necessary for me to step down from my role as a charge and take on a staff nurse position. And when I did this, my main manager was livid. She took it personally and stopped talking to me or even greeting me. And initially, I was very hurt by this. As my practical rotations were about to start, I reminded my managers of their promise to be flexible with my schedule. They denied my request for flexibility and began to schedule me almost entirely for the times I would request off. At first, I was very frustrated and very hurt that they did this, but I remembered that I was approved for FMLA leave. Now, FMLA is a very special form of leave and it cannot be denied. So, since my managers were not keeping their promises, it was with great satisfaction that I began calling off every morning that I was needed for my rotations. I didn't give them any advance notice because I was not required to. It was also with even greater satisfaction when I learned that my managers began to have to cover my shifts themselves on occasion. And to top it all off, since I had PTO hours already saved up, I still got paid as well. I finished all of my rotations in this manner, and I took a job at a different system after I graduated. I worked at the new system for several years before I was hired back at my old system as a provider. And trust me, I love seeing the look on my old manager's face when I took my first shift at her hospital as a provider and not under her chain of command. Wow, the fact that your boss basically turned on you like that is so ridiculous. ridiculous. Like, they literally just flipped the script suddenly and was like, no, because you're stepping down, now I'm gonna punish you. Like, I cannot stand managers who act like that, and honestly, you did not deserve that. But it sounds like you got the ultimate revenge by coming back as like a provider that she can't mess with. And with that, along with your malicious compliance towards using your FMLA, I think that it's great to see that you came out on top considering all that you were up against. Am I the jerk for not telling my roommates that I'm their landlord? Because right now, they're tarnishing my good name. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 28-year-old female, and I got a job when I was 17 years old and lived at home saving as much as I could until I was 26 years old, at which point I bought a small apartment for myself with a small mortgage. It has 2 rooms. One is bigger with an in-suite, and the other is a single. I didn't want to live alone for safety reasons, so I posted about getting a roommate, with them having the in-suite. I got lots of messages, but when people found out that I was the landlord, they usually just left the conversations. I was very upfront that I wanted someone who was clean, tidy, organized, quiet, and a non-drinker. And my sister said that was probably sending a toxic message since I was also the landlord. So I stopped mentioning that, and very shortly afterwards, I found some people. Now, these people are a really nice engaged couple. The woman is 29 years old and the man is 28. And although I wouldn't say we're like close best friends, we are rather friendly. We have dinner together sometimes, and the living situation has been really nice. The rent was on the cheaper side on average for our area, and we even split bills, including streaming and the internet. But here's the thing, they did not know that I was the landlord. Now, I will fully admit, I can be a little strict. I hate things being messy, disorganized, and loud, and especially since I'm the owner, I want things sorted quickly just to avoid any damages. So a few times I have scheduled checks to get things rolling if they're being pushed aside, and mentioned that I might have to complain if things weren't tidied up properly. Recently, the girl had some health issues and has been working less, which means they have been struggling on rent payments. Again, I don't need their money to pay off the mortgage, but I have been using it to help give me some extra money. I decided to come clean and mention I would cut the rent payments fully until she got better and found stable work again. They were nice about it and took the deal until she got better. They then moved about last month, and I went on the search for new roommates. Well, they started trashing me to everyone they knew. They would say how I lied about being the landlord, how I was a strict jerk, and how I was trying to steal their money in a cost of living crisis to pay off my debts. Word has finally gotten around, and I've actually stopped taking inquiries. Some of my friends and family members are saying I was a jerk and should have been honest about it from the get-go, and others are saying that I didn't owe them that kind of information, and I ended up doing them a favor. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to believe. Okay, honestly, in my opinion, I think the way you went about doing this is very misleading, and it really only benefits you. Like, the fact that you didn't disclose this to them ahead of time is really not okay. So yes, I definitely think you're the jerk. Like, I don't know about you, but I would personally really want to know if I'm living with my landlord, because that's literally going to change the dynamic completely. Now, that doesn't excuse them like tarnishing your name and saying all these awful things, because it sounds like you were not that bad in the first place. But legitimately, in my opinion, I really think this should have been discussed ahead of time, because if I was in their shoes, I would feel incredibly tricked, and that just doesn't seem fair in the slightest. My entitled landlord refuses to fix anything in our apartment, leaving me and my roommates without a water heater or even a working fridge for over a year. But after all my other roommates moved out, I decided that I was gonna get some revenge, and as a result of winning my case against him, this entitled jerk was forced to fix everything wrong with the apartment, and I was given 9 months of free rent at his place. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I need to give you some minor details. I need to start off by noting that I spent about 2 decades working in security. During that time, I worked many different types of security in many different locations. The one that matters for this story was the time I spent in the rental housing tribunal in a major city, and I worked as kind of a bailiff. For those not knowing what that is, think of a courtroom as you'd see on TV, but with less formality and an adjudicator instead of a judge. They functionally are the same thing to landlords and tenants, but they definitely aren't the same thing. This place exclusively deals with landlord and tenant disputes and is the only place to resolve them. Now, it's important to note that I wasn't a bailiff and it wasn't a court, but these terms most accurately describe the situation and my place in it. For 2 years, I worked at the rental housing tribunal, and it was early in my time in security when I was about 20 years old. Being as it was a major city, the sheer number of cases I sat through was beyond my ability to count. I saw everything there was was to see. So because of that, no one is capable of surprising me with a story because I've seen them all in detail. As a side duty of mine, I was meant to ensure all parties had copies of all evidence being presented. So I did a lot of photocopying, and I always read and inspected everything I copied to ensure that nothing got cut off or made illegible. By the time I stopped working there, I probably knew the way everything worked well enough to be an adjudicator myself. Now, obviously not really, but I'm certainly in no need of a lawyer either, should I ever have need to go there. I also had intimate knowledge of how the system worked beyond the actual rules. Like, for example, adjudicators would always give a little leeway to anyone representing themselves over someone who had a lawyer, or how upset adjudicators would get when a party was speaking out of turn. Like, seriously, don't do that. Now, with that bit of detail out of the way, I need to skip forward almost a decade. I left the city and I'm now in a fairly large town in the same province. So that means we have the same tenant laws. I have a few roommates in a decently sized townhouse, and we all get along really well, but there is only one problem. Only I can write checks, and our paydays don't line up. So I'm the one who pays the rent, and I usually can't do it on the first because my roommates don't usually all pay in time. We advise the landlord we might be a day or two late, but we'll always have it by the third at the very latest. Well, they have no problem with this at all, and I spoke to them myself. For about a year, this works just fine. There were no complaints from the landlord, because even if we were often a day or two late, we always ended up paying. We're also fairly quiet and we don't damage the property. We are nearly model tenants. Now, I do not actually have any idea why, but one day this all completely changed. I suspect a different person in the company started overseeing the region because one day, suddenly, we get a summons to the rental housing tribunal on the 2nd of the month, all because they claim we failed to pay rent. Now, this doesn't actually lead to a case because we paid the same day, but now we have to pay the application fee the landlord paid in order to serve the summons. I complained to the neighbor who was also the superintendent, and eventually I heard back that their contract at the company was now demanding first of the month with no exceptions. Well, that really didn't work for us, so we would probably have to pay that fee over 20 times over the next 2 years. I could have gone to tribunal over it, but we were technically without a leg to stand on, and I knew it. Maybe if I went a few times, I could probably ding them for really bothering us, but I don't have time for that, and my roommates just don't care. After being split between us all, the fee wasn't enough deterrent to change our behavior, so we accepted it. Now, here's the thing. If this was the only issue, I would not be posting this story online. At around the same time, the rent leeway vanished, as did the mandatory maintenance. Now, I'm not going to list everything that went wrong and wasn't fixed, but I think you'll get a decent idea at the end. But you know what? We suffered through it. We were all working too many hours at awful pay to be able to actually do anything about it, so we adapted. But after about 2 years, it finally broke. Everybody except for myself up and moved for various reasons within a 4-month period. I'm not going into any details on my roommates at all because things kind of exploded for a couple of reasons outside of this, and I just don't think there's any reason to dig up any of that. Now, I'd been saving up a while and was able to quit my job without having to immediately get another one, so I suddenly had a lot of free time. I didn't want to stay and pay the rent by myself or have to find new roommates that I could live with. And with my experience in the rental housing tribunal, I knew that I had the landlord exactly where I wanted them. So I went for them. I stopped paying rent. And annoyingly, I didn't get a summons the first month, but I did the second. So I decided to go. But I showed up with a meticulously documented plethora of evidence, all detailing the failure to maintain the property and entering the property without formal notice. I had a copy for the landlord and a copy for the adjudicator. I knew from experience that technically you're supposed to give the other party the evidence before the tribunal, but I also knew about the leeway an adjudicator gives to those who represent themselves. So I didn't give the landlord any evidence until our case came up. This was 100% a total ambush. And that's exactly what they argued. They said that they were being ambushed, but the adjudicator just dismissed the case. He dressed me down a little and told me to file my own summons as I should have done. This was all just petty revenge, by the way. The landlord and the lawyer drove 3 hours to get there for literally nothing. But trust me, this was worse than nothing. Fast forward and I filed my own summons, and the big day finally shows up. It's been about 4 months of me not paying rent at this point, and I'm prepared to deal with the consequences if I lose, but I just don't think that I'm going to lose. This entire thing could not have been better. I had about 20 to 30 pages of evidence, while also providing over 20 photos, and they had nothing. They had no actual defense for our water heater being out for 6 months, or for us not having a fridge for over a year. And that's only mentioning 2 severe issues issues. Their entire defense rested on us being late for rent, which actually worked against them once that led to the adjudicator learning how many times we'd pay the application fee and the lies that had no evidence to support them. They even talked over me a few times, and I saw in his eyes the one time I opened my mouth to protest during their turn to speak, but forced myself to shut up with every gram of willpower I had, so only a squeak came out, with the adjudicator thankfully respecting me. But he had no respect for the landlord. I had won on every possible front, but the only question was how much. Well, it was way more than I had ever seen in my life. I got 9 months of free rent, and the landlord was ordered to have everything fixed before the next month was over, or I would get even more. I gave notice I was leaving at the end of the 8th month, and I left at the end of the 9th. Because the landlord had never renewed the lease, I didn't have to give him the 3-month notice the lease specified. Now, if you want a figure to put it to, I basically got $13,000 judgment in my favor, which is adjusted for inflation and rounded. I also made the landlord and lawyer drive 3 hours twice only to lose. The landlord's face was very red by the end of it, and I seriously thought he was gonna have a heart attack. Now, just to clarify, I want to say that there are good landlords out there. I really do know that. My time at the rental housing tribunal was eye-opening. For every bad landlord, there were like 10 bad tenants easily. But regardless, I am so glad I was able to get revenge on my landlord. Wow, the landlord in this situation definitely messed with the wrong person. Like literally, this guy had everything covered. He knew exactly what he was and wasn't gonna do, and he had everything lined up to basically take down that lawyer and the landlord. Like they literally had no case and they knew it. Like I cannot imagine living in a house without a water heater or not even having a working fridge for like over a year. That is seriously not fair for you or your roommates, and that really should have been taken care of like way sooner. So good for you for putting your landlord in his place, because this guy absolutely did not know what was coming. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.